Chapter 467. By the time Tang Yuan woke up, it was already close to noon the day after the banquet. Fatty abruptly opened his eyes, got up in a roll, and roared, F***CK your grandma. Good boy. You dare to plot against your grandpa, Tang. Just you wait. He held his head and groaned as he cursed. The power of the hangover was unbearable even with his big head. Bang! The aroma of wine filled the air as a cup of fragrant wine was placed under his nose. Then he heard Jun Mo Xie's voice. You're awake? Drink more wine to sober up. Tang Yuan retched and raised his tearful eyes. Third young master. My brother, don't torment me. Your brother has lost face. Now go wash your face and then come talk to me when you're sober. I have something to say to you. Jun Moxie snorted and glared at him. You're really becoming more and more promising. Tang Yuan giggled and ran out like a wisp of smoke. A maid had already brought the water to wash his face. Fatty refused the moderately hot and cold warm water and dipped his big head directly into the ice-cold wash water. After a long time, he finally raised his head. His big head trembled and the water splashed all over the floor. Only then did he take the towel and carefully wipe himself up and down. Then he waved his hand and ordered the maid to leave. Tang Yuan then looked at Jun Moxie and grinned. Third young master, I was really drunk yesterday. Yeah, you really drank a lot. Jun Moxie nodded. Now your head doesn't hurt anymore, right? It doesn't hurt anymore, but I actually can't remember anything about last night. It was just on the tip of my tongue, and it was obviously a very important matter. How come I suddenly can't remember it? Tang Yuan tilted his head, and his face was full of distress. It's fine if you can't remember. It's not a big deal. Jun Moxie sighed. He nodded without saying a word. If Fatty had kept asking questions after waking up, Jun Moxie would have been more at ease. However, Tang Yuan immediately said that he couldn't remember anything. Jun Moxie immediately confirmed that this guy remembered everything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that just now. It was just that he didn't want to mention it, at least not now. Both Da Xiao and Tang Yuan knew that it was fine as long as both of them knew it in their hearts. However, if they said it out on the spot, it would be too awkward. Regardless of the time, place, or person, it would be inappropriate. Fatty was not only saving face for himself, but also saving face for Jun Moxie. After all, this happened in the Dugu family, and Jun Moxie was almost certain to be the future son-in-law of the Dugu family. This unforeseen event might not necessarily be related to the Dugu family, but Tang Yuan couldn't reveal anything for the sake of his brother. At least, this wasn't the right time. Tang Yuan's chubby face had a silly smile on it as he said, It's getting late, and we should probably go back. I have to hurry back to inform those fat sheep that have come to participate in the auction to bring enough silver and gold. Haha, third young master, will certainly make a fortune this time. Humph, as long as you don't stuff your own pockets, I'll give you as much as you want. Jun Moxie glared at him. Tang Yuan cried out in grievance. Third young master, I'm such a kind and honest person. I'm not that kind of person. The two burst into laughter and walked side by side out of the door. Tang Yuan and Jun Moxie seemed very relaxed as they bid farewell to the Dugu family. They didn't mention anything about last night's drunkenness. On the contrary, Dugu Zongheng's mind was heavy. They were about to go out of the door when they saw a corpse being carried in. It was covered with a white cloth. Tang Yuan's pupils shrank as he took a deep look at the corpse. Then, he turned his head and walked out of the door with Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie was flabbergasted as he looked at Tang Yuan. He suddenly felt that this guy seemed to have grown up a lot. He seemed to have matured a lot. This brother of mine is truly a brother of blood. They didn't speak a word the entire way. The two were about to enter the aristocratic hall when Tang Yuan suddenly called out to Jun Moxie. His chubby face had always been full of smiles, but there wasn't a trace of smile on it. Instead, there was a rare, dignified look on his face. His eyes were emitting a sharp luster. Third young master, that man's death was your doing, right? It was me. Jun Moxie didn't turn his head. He didn't want to see the expression on Tang Yuan's face. That brat is dead. So, I'll support you no matter what you plan to do. Yes, he's dead. But this matter isn't over yet. Tang Yuan seemed to be clenching his teeth as he spoke. Who is he? The Huang family of the Golden East City. Jun Moxie replied in a dull tone. A thought emerged in his mind at the same time. The Huang family is finished. Tang Yuan's personality would have made it clear that he wouldn't have given up until he was satisfied with his revenge. With Fatty's current net worth and the influence he had under his control, not to mention a mere Huang family, he could even shake all the big families in Tianxiang. Wealth could enslave ghosts and even gods. When one's wealth had accumulated to a frightening amount, many things that were difficult to accomplish would become very simple, very easy. Last night's matter was tantamount to an extraordinary shame and humiliation for Tang Yuan. He was the dignified eldest young master of the Tang family. He was the future heir to the aristocratic hall. He was also the new god of wealth of the capital. He had been pushed into a latrine pit. None of these four identities could accept such humiliation, not even if he was drunk, not for any other reason. This humiliation could only be washed away with fresh blood. It was obvious that Huang Shu Lu's life was not enough for Tang Yuan to vent his anger. Therefore, he wanted to take revenge. The Huang family of the Golden East City had tragically become the target of Tang Yuan's revenge. Jun Moxie could imagine how tragic Tang Yuan's revenge would be. In fact, it would be too horrible to look at. It would hurt the peace of the world. After all, there were some innocent people involved. However, Jun Moxie wouldn't stop Tang Yuan from taking revenge. Tang Yuan wouldn't be able to lift his head as long as the Huang family of the Golden East City existed in this world if he didn't take revenge. This was only a psychological problem, but it would turn into a demon in his heart. The demon in his heart wouldn't go his way. The Huang family of the Golden East City is a very big family. Tang Yuan sneered. Then he spoke in an extremely contemptuous tone. I'll make them satisfied. I've told them to wait for Grandpa Tang. He turned his head and slowly said, Third young master, I need to use the strength of the aristocratic hall. Jun Moxie didn't hesitate. He readily agreed. You don't need to go through me. The manpower of the aristocratic hall will be available to you from now on. This includes the 900 million silver taels. You can call me if the manpower of the aristocratic hall isn't enough. I'll spare no effort to help you. Jun Moxie looked at him deeply. It doesn't matter what you want to do. It doesn't matter. Remember, it's anything. Tang Yuan paused. He sniffed for a long time. Then he forced a smile and said, You motherf asterisk cur. You motherf asterisk cur. He. I only want to borrow the manpower of the aristocratic hall. I'll use my own method to solve this problem. I won't be satisfied if I use the strength of the third young master. But I believe that my current strength is enough to deal with many things. Tang Yuan's words were like a metamorphosis. The first half of his words were hesitant. In fact, he was choking with emotion. But the second half was very clear and fluent. Fatty was able to control his emotions at this moment. The two men stood facing each other for a while. Then, Tang Yuan suddenly asked, What I'm doing is very likely to arouse public anger, and it could lead to serious consequences. So, why don't you try to persuade me? I'll listen as long as you speak. I'll speak. Will you really listen? Will you feel happy even if you listen? Why would I make my brother unhappy for the sake of an outsider? Jun Moxie replied with a question. He then said in a leisurely manner, I've said it a moment ago. No matter what you want to do, I'll think that you should do it this time. We'll have no choice but to face it together if we attract some formidable opponent. If we can't handle it and die, then so be it. What's the big deal about that? This is how the world is. The weak are prey to the strong. Those with bigger fists are right. There's nothing to say if you're weaker than others. But if you're stronger than others, why should you swallow your anger? As for what happens in the future, who the F asterisk CK is thinking that much? Thinking that far ahead? Do whatever you want. Don't tell me that what I've done in the past has been recognized by the public. Are the consequences small? Since I can do it, why can't my brother? Tang Yuan was silent for a long time. Then, he patted Jun Moxie's shoulder heavily. Good brother. Fatty's big and chubby face suddenly seemed to emit a strange glow. He suddenly grabbed June Moxie's hand and said with a smile, "Let's go. Let's go take a look at my wife's face." June Moxie shrugged his shoulders. He was troubled by Fatty's sudden change of expression. He smiled bitterly and followed them in. When June Moxie caught sight of Sun Xiaomei's back, he felt as though he was shocked by a celestial being. She was still tall and short. However, her originally thick and sturdy frame had disappeared. In its place was an incomparably graceful figure. She simply stood there, giving off an air of invincibility and grace. She naturally exuded a refreshing aura. He actually felt the urge to commit a crime. June Moxie exclaimed in surprise. It had only been 3 months. However, the transformation was so great. It truly gave off a feeling of the blue sea turning into mulberry fields. This feeling was particularly obvious for the couple before him. Fatty Tang's growth from 306 to 524 was already a huge miracle. As for Sun Xiaomei, it was as though she had been reborn. From a burly man, she had transformed into a tall and slender beauty. "Hi, beautiful lady," June Moxie greeted and walked over. "June Moxie." The moment Sun Xiaomei heard June Moxie's voice, she turned around in surprise. All she heard was June Moxie's miserable scream. He said in an anguished tone, "How could this be? This is..." Looking at someone's back was a crime. However, looking at someone's face was a justifiable defense. It was too terrifying. Chapter 468. He saw that Sun Xiaomei's face was covered with abscesses. Her pimples were like a forest. Moreover, there were more than a dozen hideous mole marks on her face. This wasn't a girl's face. In fact, it couldn't even be considered a human's face. The only thing left on her face was a pair of black and white eyes. And they were fiercely glaring at Tang Yuan. "Oh my God!" June Moxie drew across with a face full of emotion. Sun Xiaomei, who was at the side, had been ridiculed by these two hateful fellows to the point of almost stamping with rage. Although Sun Xiaomei's body shape had completely changed, her original temperament had not changed at all. Previously, because of Princess Rima's matter, she had been scolded by June Moxie, so she was somewhat afraid of Da Xiao. But now that she saw him ridiculing her appearance, she could not bear it anymore. Her anger soared to the sky, and she did not care about her fear anymore. She roared, "You two bastards, are you looking for death? Hurry up and help me think of a solution. Are you itching for a beating by continuously ridiculing me? Hee, since you dared to ridicule me, then you must have the confidence to cure your face. If you didn't, then you wouldn't have ridiculed me." With Sun Xiaomei's intelligence, why didn't you see it? June Moxie clicked his tongue twice and looked up and down with his head tilted, but Sun Xiaomei's beauty at this time is really rare. I have to appreciate it carefully, or I'm afraid I won't be able to appreciate it again in the future. Sun Xiaomei was angry and anxious at the same time. She covered her face and stamped her feet. Then, she suddenly raised her foot and kicked Tang Yuan's buttocks. She angrily said, "Fatty Tang, did you bring your brother to see this old woman make a fool of herself? Or did you come to treat this old woman's face? What kind of person do you think I am?" Tang Yuan let out a strange cry. He covered his buttocks and begged, "Third young master, please hurry up and start. Your poor brother, have been driven crazy by this woman these past few days. Let alone having fun, I don't even have the appetite to eat." June Moxie snickered and snapped his fingers. His face was full of smiles as he said, "You truly have the face of a devil and the body of an angel." Whoosh! Tang Yuan dashed out. "I'm going to arrange for the auction. Third young master, take your time with your treatment. I believe you'll definitely be cured." Holy shit. You're handing your wife over to me just like that? You're really at ease, ah? June Mo Xie screamed. The young master June's courage soared to the heavens as he faced this terrifying face alone. But he was still worried in his heart. I can't take advantage of my friend's wife. How can I not have confidence in Da Xiao? Besides, if her face had recovered, perhaps I really wouldn't be at ease to hand her over to a big pervert like you. But now, if you like her, then you're really capable. Tang Yuan's voice came from afar. His last sentence was almost inaudible. So mean. June Moxie sighed. He hooked his finger and whistled lightly. His body swayed as he said, "Girl, come here. Let Big Brother have a look." With a schwa sound, a saber light flashed, and June Mocie's finger was nearly chopped off. June Moxie laughed and dodged. What a fierce girl. Fatty's future life would definitely be very happy. June Moxie finally completed the first treatment for Young Lady Sun after a long time. Young Lady Sun's illness wasn't that serious. In fact, it was purely a serious endocrine disorder. There was no room for excretion. So, all the poisonous gas had gathered on her face and couldn't come out. In this era, this was truly an incurable disease. But to June Mocie, it was a very relaxing and pleasant experience. This illness couldn't be compared to the old illnesses of Third Master June and Old Man Dugu. In fact, it was a piece of cake. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune carried a high degree of spiritual energy. So, it circulated through the meridians above Sun Xiaomei's neck. Then, the spiritual energy pressed down on her face. Sun Xiaomei felt a cool sensation on her face. It was extremely comfortable. But this comfortable feeling only lasted for a moment. Then, she felt as if 10,000 ants were crawling on her face. And it was incomparably uncomfortable. The pustules on Sun Xiaomei's face had started to show signs of rupture by the time June Moxie withdrew his hand. In fact, many of them were oozing with pus. June Moxie stretched out his hand several times. But he was too embarrassed to do it himself. So, he asked Young Lady Sun to get herself a basin of water and washed her face by himself. Sun Xiaomei tried to wash her face with cold water, but she suddenly felt that her face was wrinkled and uncomfortable. Many of the pustules had also ruptured, and they were extremely itchy. So, she couldn't help but scratch them. But she felt as if she had pulled off a thin layer of something from her face. She opened her eyes and saw that a layer of skin had been peeled off from her face. It was a layer of unbearably filthy skin. Sun Xiaomei cried out in alarm. Then, she threw it away. But she couldn't help but touch her face. And she felt that the skin on her face had become much smoother. She was pleasantly surprised. So, she washed her face as fast as she could. Then, she rushed over to the mirror to take a look. There were still some red spots on the woman's face in the mirror, but the outline of her face was very clear, and it wasn't as frightening as it had been a moment ago. In fact, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. In fact, most of her fair and smooth skin had already been exposed. The effect is so fast. Sun Xiaomei stared blankly in front of the mirror for a long time. After a long time, 2 clear streams of tears flowed down uncontrollably. June Moxie sighed behind her and said, "At most, you'll need 2 more times. Then, your face will truly transform into the beautiful face that you should have. I believe that there will be another peerless beauty in the Imperial City. When you go out with Xiao, Yi, and Raimu in the future, you'll be like an orchid and a chrysanthemum. Each of you has your own advantages. You'll have 300% of people turning their heads to look at you. What a pity. Such a beautiful woman is actually Tang Yuan's fiancée. This is simply burning the zither and cooking the crane. It's such a waste of a scenery. Beautiful woman, why don't you follow me? I'll let you be my 99th concubine." Da Xiao's miraculous hands could bring the dying back to life. His words were getting more and more outrageous. The first half of his words were quite pleasant to the ears. They sounded like words of a human. But the second half was quite beastly. Go to hell. Sun Xiaomei forgot about her sadness. She felt ashamed and resentful at the same time. Then, she mercilessly punched the benefactor who was teasing her. June Moxie laughed heartily. He was overjoyed. After a long time, Sun Xiaomei suddenly let out a long sigh and said, "June, third young master, words cannot express my gratitude. You're Fatty's brother. I won't say too many polite words. I just want to hear one thing from you. Is it possible to reduce the weight of Fatty's body? I'm really worried now. With Fatty's body size, once he's over 30 years old, this is really a couple. Damn it. This one brought me here to treat the other's face. Then the other one turned around and asked me to help this one lose weight. It's indeed dangerous. If you want him to lose weight, you'll need his full cooperation. Only then is it possible. Speaking of his problem, June Moxie also had a headache. How is this guy going to lose weight if he eats so much? Not to mention the meat and soup he eats, just the white steamed buns he eats 100 or so a day. Is this King human? Lose weight? Dream on. I beg you, you must help him lose weight. If he continues to gain weight, he'll definitely lose his life. Sun Xiaomei raised her head solemnly and looked at June Moxie with a worried expression. Fatty once said, if my face recovers, he'll take the initiative to call off the engagement. No matter who he is or what kind of person he is, he, in my eyes, is a good man. I really hope to be able to be with him, live a good life, hold your hand, and grow old together. As Sun Xiaomei said this, a faint blush appeared on her face. Fatty is a good man? When did that damned Fatty become so noble? Isn't this too much of a myth? June Moxie raised his eyebrows in surprise and probed. It's really difficult for this damned Fatty to lose weight, and he's so ugly. Once your face recovers, you'll become a peerless beauty whose beauty can cause the downfall of nations. Since Fatty is willing to call off the engagement, why don't you take the opportunity to gain your freedom? Any other man should be more pleasing to the eye than Fatty, right? We're all acquaintances here, so I'm just stating the truth. June Moxie, when Fatty said that he wanted to call off the engagement, I could see that he was sincere. But for what you're saying now, I can also hear it. Sun Xiaomei regained her composure and wiped away her tears. She looked at June Moxie. Are you testing me on behalf of your brother? In your hearts, am I, Sun Xiaomei, such a fickle woman? Am I really that unbearable? About that. June Moxie felt a little awkward. He rubbed his nose and didn't say anything. Tang Yuan is just a little fat, and his appearance isn't outstanding. I believe that as long as it's a woman, no one will think that Tang Yuan is good-looking. But although Tang Yuan is fat, he's a real man, a real man. I'm glad about this. When I heard that I was going to be engaged to Tang Yuan, I argued with my father and refused to marry that notorious damned Fatty no matter what. So what if I'm ugly? At most, I'll just spend the rest of my life in seclusion. But after getting along with him for the past few months, I've changed my mind. Sun Xiaomei said softly, her eyes blurred. It doesn't matter if he's a good person, a bad person, a hooligan, or an evil tyrant. In any case, I've decided on him. Whether he succeeds in losing weight or not, I'm already destined to be Mrs. Tang. I'm willing. If he's an official, I'll be his wife. If he's a businessman, I'll carry the weight for him. If he's a beggar, I'll carry the dog-beating stick for him. Fatty is a good man. I like him. Sun Xiaomei raised her head and looked at June Moxie. She said slowly, no matter if he's rich or poor, handsome or ugly, I'm willing to accompany him for the rest of my life. If my fate is disturbed because of my appearance, I'd rather not have my face healed. At that time, one of us will be crippled while the other will be incomplete. We'll be a good match. Chapter 469. Good. Well said. June Moxie's countenance turned solemn. He couldn't help but cheer. He took 2 steps forward and said in a deep voice, I, June Moxie, thank you on behalf of my brother, sister-in-law. Then, June Moxie turned around and walked away with large strides. He was very happy in his heart. He was sincerely happy for Tang Yuan at this moment. If he's an official, I'll be his wife. If he's a businessman, I'll be his weight. If he's a beggar, I'll beat dogs with a dog-beating stick. This kind of love was what every man dreamed of. Tang Yuan's life wouldn't have been in vain if he could have such a love. You still haven't told me if there's a way to make him lose weight? Sun Xiaomei anxiously shouted from behind. June Moxie stood with his back facing her. He extended his hand and made an okay gesture above his head. Then, he laughed heartily. I said it's possible, so it's possible. There's nothing in this world that I, June Moxie, can't do. But you mustn't feel sorry for him when you see him in pain. Moreover, I hope that you'll remember what you've said today for the rest of your life. I'm very serious about it. June Moxie's figure disappeared in front of her. Sun Xiaomei was still standing in the same place. She suddenly snorted and said, "What do you mean by I hope that you'll remember what you've said today for the rest of your life? You're very serious. Do you think this great aunt is a child's play? Do you think I can joke around with my feelings? What a joke. This great aunt isn't a man. But I'm still responsible for my own heart." Tang Yuan was issuing orders nonstop. The orders were issued from his mouth like floating clouds and flowing water. Then the people that Hai Feng had arranged in the aristocratic hall obeyed his orders. Then they quickly got up and went out to convey Tang Yuan's orders to every corner of the continent through different channels. Jun Moxie had heard a few words. He could tell that the bone-tempering pills that Tang Yuan was auctioning this time were aimed at the Xianxi aristocratic families. The bone-tempering pill was an elixir that was tailor-made for Xian and martial artists. Tang Yuan's goal this time was very clear. However, it would be very difficult for those Xianxi families to transport so much gold and silver here. Jun Mo Xie suddenly thought of an idea. Those people would certainly bring their silver notes to Tianxiang City to exchange for gold and silver. So, wouldn't I be able to take advantage of the situation and loot the house when it's in trouble? For example, 1,000 taels of silver can only be exchanged for 800 taels of silver. Hee, this is a business opportunity. Tang Yuan finally finished his work after a long while. Only Song Shang, Hai Feng, and Jun Moxie were left in the hall. Finally, Tang Yuan's complexion turned gloomy. His eyes swept over Hai Feng and Song Shang. A dignified look appeared on his face as he slowly said, "Now, I'm going to announce an important decision." Hai Feng and Song Shang rolled their eyes. It was always their turn to do the hard work every time Tang Yuan spoke like this. It seemed that this time would be no exception. Attack the Huang family of Golden East City from all the commercial channels, including water and land. Use all the connections you can and can't use. Use all the light and dark methods. Regardless of the cost, regardless of the loss, make the Huang family go bankrupt in the shortest time possible. Tang Yuan said word by word. Hai Feng, please use your connections to mobilize the underground forces of the Golden East City. Use every means possible to harass, strike, intimidate, kidnap, and blackmail the Huang family of the Golden East City. Kill all the officials of the Golden East City if they dare to help the Huang family. I will bear all the consequences. Tang Yuan's fat face was overflowing with an unusual murderous look. Lang Lang smiled and said, "Wait until the Huang family is desperate. Then bring them to me." So this time, how much is the estimated cost? Hai Feng frowned and said worriedly, "After all, we're going to attack a powerful family in such a short time. Can our aristocratic hall afford it? How did the Huang family of the Golden East City offend this smiling Mithria Buddha? But he's actually as vicious as a jackal and wolf in his heart. This Huang family is really unlucky. You, me, and the aristocratic hall will be the ones to invest this time. All the manpower, material, and financial resources. I'll also throw in the Tang family, if that's not enough. I'll also be the future lord of the Tang family." Tang Yuan's eyes emitted an extreme ferocity as he spoke in a low and hysterical voice. "Young Master Yuan, does my master know about this?" Song Shang frowned. "I know, and I support it with all my strength. Everything will be carried out in accordance with Tang Yuan's instructions. Tang Yuan is the chief shopkeeper of the aristocratic hall, so his orders are the highest decision. There's no need to question it, and you can't question it." Jun Moxie said indifferently. He was leaning against the door, but no one in the room would have noticed his presence if he hadn't made a sound. Hai Feng and Song Shang promptly stood up to greet him. "There's no problem if that's the case." Hai Feng calmly went through the procedure in his mind. Then he replied with confidence, "Can I ask one more question? Why is that?" "There's no why. Do we need a reason?" Tang Yuan's facial muscles twitched as he clenched his teeth. "Of course we don't need a reason." Jun Moxie slowly walked in. He looked at Tang Yuan, but, "Fatty, I want to remind you of one thing. We can be crazy, we can be evil, and we can ignore the people of the world. We can regard all living beings as worthless weeds. But we can't lose our conscience. We want to take revenge. But we can't go too far. We've already killed people who provoked us. However, there's a limit to how much we can do. The Huang family doesn't discipline them well. The others are innocent in this matter. We're only venting your anger. I hope that you can control this limit. You said that you want to see them when they're at their most miserable. I hope that you understand. Of course, I won't stop you if you insist on killing them and exterminating their entire family. Jun Moxie slowly said, because you're my brother. I'll accompany you even if I have to become a demon in hell. Tang Yuan's face twitched in pain. He looked gloomy, but didn't say anything. After a long while, he said in a hoarse voice, don't worry. I just want them to know that they're not the only ones who have to bear the consequences of their wrongdoings. Of course, I don't mind exterminating them if they don't know what's good for them. Jun Moxie chuckled. He patted his shoulder, but didn't say anything. You know that I'm just venting my anger. But you're giving me 900 million silver taels? All of your assets? Tang Yuan suddenly became excited. Because you're my brother. So, I'll accompany you in your madness. Can 900 million silver taels buy a Tang Yuan? If it can, I'll take it back immediately. Jun Moxie smiled mischievously. Tang Yuan abruptly turned around and laughed out loud. However, he choked on his sobs and started coughing. Hai Chanfeng and Song Shang looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with emotion. He's throwing 900 million silver taels for his brother's sake. What kind of brother is this? Throughout the ages, how many people would throw 900 million silver taels for their own brother? Emperor? Is that possible? No. This is 900 million silver taels. It's not 9. It's not 9. It's not 9. It's not 9. Tianxiang is such a big country. But its national treasury doesn't even have 100 million silver taels. Tianxiang's national treasury doesn't even have this number for 10 years. Then it's all for one person. There are people who would risk their lives for their friends. But 900 million silver taels can build a city with just this much silver. This has never happened since ancient times. It didn't say anything. Instead, they quietly went out to arrange the things that Fatty had instructed them to do. Only the two brothers were left in the room. Jun Moxie was behind them. He said in a dull tone, each of you should take one bone-tempering pill first. Feel its effects. I reckon that it should improve your reflexes by a lot. Hai Chenfeng and Song Shang were overjoyed. They thanked him in unison. Tang Yuan finally let out a sigh of relief as he watched them leave. He collapsed on the chair as if he had exhausted all his strength. He covered his face with his hands. After a while, the fat man suddenly jumped up and looked around sneakily. He walked to the door and poked his head out. Then, he closed all the windows with a serious look. He took advantage of this opportunity to wipe the corners of his eyes with his sleeves. He thought that Jun Moxie hadn't seen it. But Jun Moxie also thought that he hadn't seen it. What are you doing? Why are you being so sneaky? Jun Moxie looked at him strangely. Don't worry. I'm here. I believe that Shun Xian won't be able to eavesdrop on our conversation, even if he's a great master. That's good. Tang Yuan moved closer in a secretive manner. Third young master, there seems to be something wrong with you recently. What's wrong? Jun Moxie raised his eyebrows. There's something wrong with the royal family. To be precise, there's something wrong with the emperor himself. Tang Yuan's breathing became somewhat rapid. You've been plotting against you ever since you came from the Southern Heaven City. It can be said that everything has been prepared. They've been waiting for you to return, and they've been ready to kill you. But you started a massacre at the gates of the Tianxiang city after you returned. Then, you forcibly seized many of the Meng family's properties. Then, more than 30 officials were strangely killed. And those people were the ones who had attacked you the most. I believe that even an idiot would know that it was you who did it. This is a crime punishable by the extermination of the entire family. But there hasn't been any movement from the emperor's side. Don't you think it's strange? Should I think it's strange? Jun Moxie propped up his chin and assumed a thinker pose. But His Majesty hasn't gone to court since the day you returned. Tang Yuan said worriedly. Third young master, you may have to be mentally prepared. The Jun family is in the limelight now, but His Majesty may have a way to uproot the Jun family if he wants to. The strength of an entire country may not be able to be matched by an individual. Chapter 470. The Tang family has always been a direct descendant of the royal family, and my grandfather has always been loyal to His Majesty. Our Tang family is bound to follow His Majesty. Tang Yuan frowned and was a little distressed. My grandfather has always fought alongside His Majesty. If His Majesty really wants to deal with the Jun family, my grandfather, Tang Yuan gritted his teeth. He will definitely stand on His Majesty's side. I understand. Jun Moxie patted Tang Yuan's shoulder comfortingly. I won't hurt him. Thank you. Tang Yuan felt a weight lifted from his heart. Oh, you've learned to say thank you to me? You're awesome. Do you feel better now? Jun Moxie looked at him from the corner of his eyes. Hee, we're brothers. I didn't want to say those words to you, but we're brothers, and I will certainly stand on your side, but Tang Yuan's expression was very serious. Fatty, you also know that my wish is for my family and brothers to be safe and happy. My brother's family is naturally included in that wish. If you say thank you or something like that, then that would be an outsider. The young master chuckled. We're all good brothers for life. That's right. Fatty's originally serious face instantly changed, and he scratched his head in embarrassment. He suddenly became very nervous. Third young master, that thing, you must not let my family know, and especially not let Sun Xiaomei know. Otherwise, I won't be able to face anyone. What can't let others know? You mean that thing of yours? This is bad. Jun Moxie jumped up in surprise and paced around the room. Why didn't you say so earlier? When I blurted it out just now, she found out by accident. Aya, this whole thing. I thought that the two of you would be fine. I didn't think. Sigh. This is my fault. Why am I so stupid? At first, Tang Yuan thought he was joking. But when he saw the annoyed expression on his face, it didn't look like he was faking it. Tang Yuan's heart sank, and his fat face darkened. He leaned against the corner of the wall and slowly slid down. With a glimmer of hope, he asked weakly, Really? Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you about this? Look at my mouth. Jun Moxie's face was full of regret. With a plop, Tang Dashao finally fell to the ground. His eyes were confused. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. It's over. I'm finished, Jun Moxie said painfully. Hurry up and say something nice. It's not too late. When I came here, she was about to go to the Tang family. Jun Mo. Xie chuckled mischievously as he beckoned for a maid to brew a pot of tea. Then he crossed his legs and swayed his toes as he hummed a tune. Back then, when I first opened my team, there were only a dozen people and 7 or 8 guns. Suddenly, he frowned and said, There's something seriously wrong with the lyrics. How come there were only 7 or 8 guns for a dozen people? Was there a female soldier among them? Suddenly, he heard Tang Yuan's cry from afar. It's really nothing. I swear to God, really nothing. If you don't believe me, you can ask third young master. I just wanted to see you. It's really nothing. If I lied to you, I would have been impotent on the night of our wedding. You should believe me now. Then, an angry voice said angrily, Since it's nothing, why are you apologizing to me? You actually want me not to go home and tell you that you're dead? What exactly did you do that you're dead, meat, just by saying it? Where's Jun Moxie? Where's Jun Moxie? Call him here. No, I'll go find him. I want to ask clearly. Then, the sound of footsteps was heard. It was mixed with Fatty Tang's blood-curdling screams and begging. My great-aunt, my dear grandmother, my mother, please spare me this time. You didn't do anything wrong. Why are you begging for mercy? Third young master, you've killed me. You played me to death. Mother, Fatty Tang screamed to the heavens. Jun Moxie smiled mischievously. Damn it, you made my mood so heavy. I'll let your wife teach you a good lesson this time. Therefore, he walked out with a righteous look on his face and shouted, What are you doing? What are you doing? Didn't you go out to drink wine? Why are you making such a fuss about it? I'm really puzzled. Sun Xiaomei stared blankly for a moment. Then, she turned around and pulled Tang Yuan's ear. What the hell? Fatty, Didn't you say that you accompanied third young master to the Duga family? So, you want to drink wine with women. You're good. You're good. You're good. Tang Yuan wanted to cry, but he had no tears. How can I explain? It's not right to explain, but it's even worse if I don't explain. So, he started to cry at the top of his lungs. My dear wife, look at my belly. How can I drink wine with women? Is there a girl willing to accompany me? I'll squash them to death. June Moxie chuckled. Then, he said, Ah, I suddenly remembered something. Then, his body flashed, and he disappeared without a trace. He had escaped without a trace. He could only hear the sounds of punches and kicks from behind. June Moxie felt very refreshed in his heart. Then, he floated out of the street with a whooshing sound. Suddenly, he faintly felt that someone was following him. So, he quickened his pace and made a few turns. Then he used the yin-yang escape and disappeared in broad daylight. His body couldn't be seen. But he was still in his original place. He had only escaped into the air. But there was no abnormality in front or behind him for a long time. So, June Moxie started to wonder if he was being paranoid. Then, a green light suddenly flashed, and June Moxie suddenly felt an eerie chill in his surroundings. This feeling felt as if he was walking in a dense forest and had been nailed by a poisonous snake. His whole body felt cold from the top of his head to the bottom of his spine, and then to the bottom of his feet. It felt as if an extremely venomous snake was lying on top of him. To June Moxie, this kind of feeling was extremely familiar. He suddenly recalled the time when the cold-blooded master Lei Wu Bei had fought with the Qian Sun Serpent Queen in the Tian Fa forest. The Snake King's aura had been so awe-inspiring when he had first appeared on the scene. June Moxie understood a lot of things in that split second. That green light had searched the area within a 500-foot radius in a flash. Then, it shot up into the sky with a schwa sound. It had soared to a height of more than 100 feet. Then it looked around with its sharp eyes. It floated down after a long time. Then, it waved its sleeves and the green light flashed. Then, it disappeared without a trace. June Moxie looked at it with an amiable expression. It was the younger sister of the white-clothed girl, the green-clothed girl, Mei Qian. June Moxie had already determined that Mei Qian was the Snake King of the Tian Fa forest. The Qian Sun. I had felt that something was wrong when I had seen these two sisters on the road. Then, they had mysteriously disappeared after arriving at Tianxiang City. Now, they are following me. What are they planning to do? What do they want from me? Perhaps they are plotting something against the June family. The Beast Kings of Tian Fa have the skills of a great master. They've left Tian Fa's base and traveled thousands of miles to follow me to Tianxiang. Could it be that they've discovered my secret? June Moxie activated the Hongjun Pagoda's aura, and the art of unlocking the heavens' fortune locked onto him. Then, he invisibly chased in a certain direction. That misty green light flickered a few times, and in the blink of an eye, it had changed at least a dozen positions. Then, like a sharp arrow shot from a powerful crossbow, it shot out with a whoosh sound. The speed of the Qian Sun Serpent Queen was extremely fast. In fact, it seemed as if she had turned into a meteor-like phantom. In fact, her green dress seemed as if it was about to ignite in the air. The Snake King didn't have the slightest scruple, even though it was broad daylight. She was very confident that an ordinary person wouldn't be able to see her even if they were to come face to face with her speed. At best, they would only feel as if there was a sudden cool breeze blowing past them. Apart from that, they would not feel anything else. I'm sure that even a Xianxi expert wouldn't be able to see me as long as they haven't reached the level of Tian Xian. Even Tian Xian would need to make preparations in advance. So, he would need to adjust his spirit to the best condition. He would need to concentrate on his eyes. Moreover, he would need to pay full attention to the path that I must pass through in order to be able to find me. If he really wants to track me, the Qiansun Serpent Queen was confident that even the solitary eagle, who was widely acknowledged to be unparalleled in Qinggong, might not be able to catch up with her in a short period of time. This is the innate skill of the Snake King. This is a super speed that no ordinary human can experience. In the blink of an eye, The Qiansun Serpent Queen had already left the city. The most noteworthy thing was that when the Snake King left the city, she directly leaped over the city wall. It was as if the 5 to 6 feet tall city wall was like a flat ground to her. She shot out like an arrow released from a bow. In fact, the city wall was also like a flat ground to the Snake King. The Snake King didn't borrow any force to fly several tens of feet in the air. Her flying speed didn't slow down at all. However, the distance between her body and the ground was getting lower and lower. The moment she reached the lowest point, she suddenly tapped the grass with the tip of her toes and accelerated again. Behind her, a withered grass was swaying gently. She's indeed the Qiansun Serpent Queen. Jun Moxie, who was following behind while invisible, exclaimed in admiration. If it were a human, perhaps no one would be able to achieve this kind of speed and agility so naturally. He believed that the solitary eagle wouldn't be able to do it either. After all, the solitary eagle was a human. This was an innate skill that only the supreme beast kings of the Tian Fa forest possessed. It was impossible to learn it. The Snake King was madly galloping along the way. So, she had already traveled more than 10 kilometers away from the city within a short period of time. She saw that there was a mountain forest in front of her. Moreover, the forest had gradually become denser. However, her slender body suddenly came to a halt while she was galloping at full speed. Then, she rose into the sky with a schwa sound. She then rose into the sky like a rocket. In that instant, she suddenly turned her head around. A pure and charming face appeared in the air, just like that. Her green robes fluttered in the wind. She had an otherworldly fairy aura and a cold, murderous intent. Her eyes were black and white. She looked behind her with endless killing intent. The Serpent King's imposing aura swept out in all directions. All the flowers and trees in front of her collapsed. Chapter 471. Jun Moxie's body, which was concealed in the air, was forcefully pushed out by this violent momentum. Like a kite with a broken string, he fell dozens of feet away. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. Fortunately, he had concealed himself. Otherwise, he would have been exposed. Snake King was indeed a character who was on par with the 8 great masters. After a long time, Qiansun Serpent Queen didn't find anything unusual. She couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. I clearly felt that someone was following me. How could there be nothing? Was it really an illusion? It shouldn't be. How could I have an illusion? She looked carefully again and finally confirmed that no one was following her. Then her body flashed and she directly landed. There was still no movement in the bushes, but she had already concealed herself and quietly looked at the path she came from. Her expression was so confident, so quiet. It seemed that she could stay like this until the end of time. If someone was following her and found that she had disappeared after such a long time, they would definitely come out to check. But once they came out, they would be attacked by Snake King. Snake King was confident that he could wait for this person to come out. But she waited for a long time, but no one came. She watched as the red sun slowly slanted to the west, but there was still no movement. Could it be that my feeling was wrong? Qiansun Serpent Queen muttered to herself doubtfully. 2 hours had passed. If someone was really following her, even if the person had reached a higher level than the great masters, he would still have to come out to check the situation. Unfortunately, Snake King didn't know that the person she was waiting for was not far from her. The evil monarch, the king of assassins. If he didn't have extraordinary patience, he would have already died 800 times. Not to mention that Da Xiao was currently in the state of yin-yang escape. The enemy was in the light, and he was in the dark. However, Jun Moxie and Jun Da Xiao's current thoughts were quite different. He was looking at the figure of Snake King who was lying on the ground with interest. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, "That little, but is really perky and perky. It must feel first class, no, it should be super class. I really want to pat it and rub it. I wonder which one feels better compared to that little fellow." After a long while, the Snake King finally decided to give up since she hadn't discovered anything. However, she still didn't let down her guard. Her body was still crouching. However, she suddenly started to retreat at a rapid speed. She looked like a big fish swimming through the grass. Then, she didn't know when she had turned her head around. She sped up with a schwa sound, and the grass parted without any warning. Then, her figure disappeared into the dense grass. In the early winter, not a single blade of grass was rubbed off by her. June M.O. Xie smiled faintly and continued to calmly follow them. You can defend against tracking, you can defend against people, you can defend against beasts, but can you defend against spirits? And now that June Moxie was using the yin-yang escape, not only was his movement speed godly, he was even more ethereal than a spirit. However, the Snake King's spirit demon hadn't left the forest the entire way. In fact, she had been extremely suspicious the entire time. She had changed directions several hundred times and had used countless techniques. But she still hadn't been able to get rid of the subtle feeling that she was being followed. This kind of helplessness almost caused this supreme Beast King of Tian Fa to collapse. It was only the Beast King's extraordinary senses that allowed them to sense the young master's miraculous sense of tracking. This was probably what we call the instinct of a beast, or the sixth sense, or intuition. With the ingenuity of June Moxie's yin-yang escape, if he were to purely follow a human expert, he would probably not be discovered even if he followed him to his bed. For example, if June Moxie had followed the solitary eagle, the solitary eagle king would definitely have foolishly brought this uninvited guest back to his nest without anyone noticing. But the fact that the Qian Sun serpent queen was able to clearly sense that she was being followed was already very surprising to June Moxie. Finally, the Snake King, who was on the verge of collapsing, let out a clear whistle and stepped onto the top of a large tree. He raised his voice and said, "May I ask which expert is following me? What advice do you have? Please show yourself. If you have any requests, this little girl will consider it." The empty mountain was silent. There was no response, not even a drop of water. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen was both angry and anxious. If she continued forward, it would be the place where the two sisters were resting. If this mysterious tracker really followed her all the way there, then she would lose all her face all the way back to the Tian Fa forest. She had lured the enemy over in front of Boss, but she didn't even know who it was. What the hell is this? At this moment, a clear and indifferent voice sounded. "Qian Sun, what's wrong? Why are your thoughts in such a mess? Are you sure someone is following you? Even if someone is really following you, you don't need to be so flustered and confused." Following this clear and indifferent voice, an incomparably graceful white figure suddenly appeared, like a fairy from the 9 heavens descending to the human world. The moment she appeared, the entire forest and the entire area seemed to have become overflowing with celestial chi. Even the grass and trees seemed to be filled with spirituality. Qian Sun lightly swept down from the top of the tree with a face full of shame. Today, she didn't disguise herself. She still had her fairy-like beauty. Standing in front of the white-clothed woman, Mei Xuyin, the pair of sisters complimented each other. The white-clothed woman, Mei Xuyin, was full of grace and peerless elegance, but the Qian Sun Serpent Queen looked more playful and cute. "Sister, you don't know this, but I've always been able to clearly feel that someone is following me. But I've tried hundreds of methods and tried all the secret techniques I know, but this feeling still exists. It's not scary to be followed, and it's not a big deal that I can't sense it. That's because the other party's method is brilliant, but that inexplicable fear of the unknown almost makes me collapse. Even with Sister's magical power, even if you personally follow me and use all your strength, I'm still confident that I can see through you. In this sense, I'm also a little uncertain now. Sister, do you think I'm really being paranoid? How can there be such an expert in the heavenly world? How can there be such remarkable methods?" The Snake King had always been calm and collected, but her face revealed a sincere expression of exhaustion. She then said in a rather hesitant manner, "Silly sister, with your cultivation, you could be regarded as a top powerhouse in today's world. Such indecisiveness and suspicion really shouldn't happen to you." The girl in white smiled and said, Since you feel that someone is following you, then there must be someone. That intuition is the innate ability of us Xian beasts. There's no doubt about this. I think it's just that the method of the person following you is higher. There's a saying among humans that makes a lot of sense. There's always someone better than you. You're confident that you can see through my tracking, but can't there be someone better than me in this world? Sister, you mean this person is a master among masters? He might even be better than you. A fierce look flashed in the eyes of Qian Sun's Serpent Queen, and she was eager to try. The girl in white smiled and said, whether he's better than me or not, it's hard to say. It's hard to say if he's better than me. Let's go. No matter why this person is following you, since he's following you, he must have his purpose. Along the way, he hasn't shown up at all. I think he won't show up in a short period of time. I believe that even if we completely ignore him, as long as the time is right, he will automatically jump out. Come, tell me, what's your harvest from this trip? As she said that, the girl in white smiled as if nothing was in her heart. Her eyes turned slightly, and she pulled the hand of Qian Sun's Serpent Queen like two little girls coming out to play. After a few steps, they sat down under a big tree. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao, who were in a state of concealment, were groaning inwardly. Initially, he was hiding about 40 to 50 feet away from where the Snake King had just been. However, for some reason, he suddenly felt an extremely strong pressure in his heart. It was a pressure that he was unable to resist, even though he had made several breakthroughs in his strength. It was as if a great danger was about to befall him if he continued to forcefully stay where he was. His heart was extremely stifled. Jun Moxie had never doubted his intuition. This inexplicable faith had saved the evil monarch countless times. So the moment this feeling rose, he silently attached himself to a big tree. Yin-Yang escape would escape technique. The moment he hid himself in the big tree, the girl in white suddenly appeared. Then, whether it was intentional or not, the girl in white pulled the Qian Sun's Serpent Queen and actually sat down at the root of the big tree that he had attached himself to. This was really good. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao didn't dare to move at all. Even if he was still in the state of yin-yang escape technique, he still didn't dare to move recklessly, because as long as he moved, there would definitely be a fluctuation of qi. Even if the fluctuation of qi was very small, it was obvious that the two girls under the tree were not ordinary people at such a close distance. There was no doubt that he would be discovered. He couldn't even change the state of his technique. If he wanted to escape into the void, he would need a moment of time, but there was no such time right now. Moreover, Jun Moxie couldn't be sure whether the girl in white pulled the Qian Sun's Serpent Queen to sit under this tree on purpose or not. If it was intentional, Jun Moxie didn't dare to move. Fortunately, the reputation of the king of assassins in Jun Dashao's previous life wasn't just for show. Not to mention hiding for a while, it wouldn't be a problem for him to hide for 3 to 5 hours or even 3 to 5 days. An outstanding assassin was always used to waiting in loneliness. The eyes of the girl in white were deep in thought. She firmly believed that her intuition towards the Snake King was right. With the cultivation of the Snake King, coupled with the innate intuition of a mystical beast, it would only be a joke if she was still suspicious. If there was a feeling, then there was a feeling. There was no other explanation. So she was sure that someone was following them. But what really surprised her was that even she couldn't be sure if that person really existed, not to mention finding out the whereabouts of the person who was tracking them. Chapter 472. As for why Mei Shuyan had chosen to sit under this tree, it was only because of her intuition. She had felt that there was something wrong with this place because of her instinct as a Xian beast. In fact, she felt that there was something strange about this place. But she couldn't explain it with words. I feel that this boy is getting more and more mysterious this time. Qian Sun's Serpent Queen had finally let go of the doubts in her heart for the time being. Perhaps it was because she had her most trustworthy elder sister, Mei Shuyan, by her side. That was because she had an incomparable sense of security when she was with her elder sister. It didn't matter whether someone was tracking them or not. In fact, She wouldn't need to be afraid, even if the Emperor of Heaven was tracking her, as long as she was with her elder sister. Mysterious? What do you mean? Mei Shuiyan's beautiful face didn't have much change in expression. She merely knitted her eyebrows. Yes, I heard that this guy went crazy after we left the city gate. He used the most brutal and bloody method to stop the rumors. Then he brazenly dispatched his guards in the afternoon and seized all the properties of the Meng family. Then he killed the masterminds of this incident that very night. They were the most famous scholars in Tianxiang, and nearly 30 officials were also killed along with them. Moreover, the imperial family didn't react to this. Then they went to the Dugu family to discuss the marriage, and they unexpectedly discussed the marriage. Qian Sun's serpent queen hadn't finished speaking when she was interrupted by Mei Shu. Discuss the marriage? What marriage did they go to the Dugu family to discuss? Mei Shuiyan's complexion was as cold as ice as she said these words. What marriage? Of course, it's to discuss the marriage between Jun Moxie and Dugu Xiaoyi in the Dugu family. Snake King looked at his elder sister in astonishment. Oh, I thought it was about Jun Mo Xie and Guan Qinghan's marriage. You scared me. I was wondering why their marriage would be discussed at the Dugu family's place. You little girl, you didn't explain it clearly. Why didn't you explain it earlier? Mei Shuiyan looked at her in rebuke. Snake King's brain short-circuited for a moment. Why would they discuss Guan Qinghan's marriage when they were in the Dugu family? Wasn't this a joke? How did Big Sister think about it? She was too imaginative, wasn't she? What happened next? Something interesting must have happened since you're keeping us in suspense, right? Mei Shuiyan solemnly asked. That's right. A group of men got drunk, and one of Jun Moxie's brothers, Tang Yuan, was plotted against. He was pushed into a latrine pit. Big Sister, you don't know this, but that Tang Yuan was fat. I think he weighed at least 250 pounds. Jun Moxie had a fit in the Dugu family because of this matter. He didn't care about his in-laws in order to avenge his brother. He forced the Dugu family to kill their nephew. Didn't care about their in-laws in the slightest. Mei Shuiyan looked at the clouds and the sky in a leisurely manner. Then, she indifferently said, It seems that the marriage has been discussed. Snake King was stunned once again. We've come here for Jun Moxie's master, and also for the sake of refining the sacred fruit. So, why does Big Sister care about Jun Moxie's marriage? It's a pity that I didn't see Jun Moxie's mysterious master from the beginning to the end. And I thought that Jun Moxie would have asked his master for help because of this big disturbance. But I didn't expect that the brat would have taken care of everything by himself. Qian Sun frowned. However, Jun Moxie's unscrupulous and lawless behavior has made me feel that he has an extremely powerful backer. And this backer can't be shaken by anyone. Moreover, this backer will appear whenever he needs it. Therefore, I've come to the conclusion that Jun Moxie's backer is hiding in the Jun family. Qian Sun's serpent queen gave a resolute conclusion. Then, she continued, Therefore, I chose to chase after Jun Moxie. But this brat is too formidable. I had chased after him from the aristocratic hall, but he seemed to have sensed that I was following him. So, I lost track of him after a few turns. Snake King's face turned red, but it was already quite late when I came out. So, I was planning to go back, but I suddenly felt as if I was being followed halfway. And this feeling was even more intense when I flew down from the city walls. However, the person who was following me was very strong, but I believe that he doesn't have any evil intentions towards me. I can feel this. Qian Sun's serpent queen lowered her brows and said in a dull tone. She had spoken for a long time, but hadn't heard any response. So, she couldn't help but look to her side in astonishment. She saw that her elder sister's face was expressionless, but her beautiful eyes were flashing with a complicated light. She was fixedly looking at the ground, and it seemed as if she hadn't heard what she had said. Qian Sun's serpent queen was very surprised. She followed her elder sister's gaze, but didn't see anything unsightly. So, she couldn't help but feel even more baffled. Elder sister, what are you thinking? Why is elder sister acting so strange today? Sun, don't you think that we're not straightforward enough? What do you think would happen if we were to seriously injure or kill Jun Moxie? Mei Shuyan looked ahead. It seemed as if she was talking to the air. Seriously injure him? Kill him? Sun's serpent queen jumped in fright. Elder sister, we mustn't do that. Let's not talk about the fact that our sacred fruit is still in the hands of that brat's master. And we won't have any hope of finding him if we lose the restriction of Jun Moxie. Moreover, his master's strength is too frightening. Our Tion Fa is facing the pressure of the three holy lands. So, we can't afford to make such a strong enemy. You're right. Our Tion Fa is in troubled times. So, we can't afford to make too many strong enemies. But we still need to make that Jun Moxie feel a strong pressure. A pressure that can threaten his life. Only then will he ask his master to come out. You should have thought of this, right? If Jun Moxie can solve everything by himself, then his master will never appear. Mei Shuyan spoke very slowly. Mei Shuyan's words were very reasonable. Her method was the most effective one at the moment. But Sun's serpent queen felt that it was strange from the bottom of her heart. Elder sister will act strangely whenever Jun Moxie's name is mentioned. She'll either want to kill him or cripple him. And she wants to exert pressure on him. Could it be that this brat has offended elder sister in the past? In fact, Sun's serpent queen could faintly feel that her elder sister's heart was fluctuating and her emotions were in turmoil whenever Jun Moxie was mentioned. But she had used her tyrannical cultivation to forcefully suppress it. Moreover, all the strange ideas that had tormented Jun Moxie on the way back from Tion Fa had come from Mei Shuyan. What's the purpose of this? Then, big sister, what kind of method should we use to create pressure for him? This pressure must be moderate. It won't work if it's too little, but I'm afraid that it'll produce side effects if it's too much. After all, we need that mysterious expert's help. Sun's serpent queen cautiously asked, I'll take care of this. The Jun family will invite many guests and friends in a few days, if I'm not wrong. They'll hold a grand banquet and announce to the world that Jun Wui has adopted Guan Qing Han as his daughter. This is an opportunity. Moreover, Dugu Xiaoi had entered the city with a big belly. So, I'm afraid that the marriage between the Jun and the Dugu family is urgent. And they'll certainly hold a grand ceremony if the two families are to unite by marriage. In fact, it won't be a marriage, but it'll be an engagement at the very least. This is also an opportunity. Mei Shuyan's beautiful face suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. What if we let him have two beauties in his arms and enjoy the blessings of the world? Wouldn't that be too easy for him? How can there be such a thing in this world? Even if there is, that bastard shouldn't be able to enjoy it. Sun's serpent queen felt a sense of absurdity rising in her heart. What's going on? Our original intention was to find Jun Moxie's master with his help. We didn't want to become enemies with them. But eldest sister's proposal is aimed at Jun Moxie's women. Does this make things difficult? Does it look like pressure? Why does it look like jealousy instead? However, she didn't want to say this out loud. In fact, she didn't dare to say it out loud. Little did she know that Mei Shuyan was thinking, Stinky brat, I haven't even settled my account with you in the Tion Fa forest. But you want to marry a wife? In your dreams. Humph. See how I torture you this time. Go and prepare dinner. I'll sit here for a while. I'll be back soon. Mei Shuyan looked at the sky and said calmly. Snake King stood up and hesitated. He wanted to say something, but didn't. Finally, he floated away like a gust of wind. At this moment, she didn't feel like she was being followed anymore. After a long time, the mountain breeze blew gently. Mei Shuyan suddenly said quietly, You've been here for so long. You've heard our conversation for so long. It's enough for you. It's time for you to come out, right? As she spoke, her eyes were still quietly looking at the sky. Her posture didn't change at all. Jun Moxie snorted coldly in his heart. My yin-yang escape technique is unparalleled since ancient times. No one has ever been able to see through it. I won't fall for your trick. Do you think I'll come out just because you tell me to? Who do you think you are? Do you think you can discover me? Humph. I'll wait until you leave the roots of this tree. Then, I'll immediately fly away. You're lying to me. Just you wait. June Moxie finally confirmed that this white-clothed lady, Mei Shuyan, who used to be delicate and timid in his eyes, was actually a Qian expert who was even more powerful than the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. Among all the experts that he had met, only the venerable Mei of the Tian Fa Forest could be compared to Mei Shuyan. In fact, they might not even be that much weaker. There was actually such a terrifying person in the Tian Fa Forest. As such, he had to reevaluate the strength of the Tian Fa Forest. Chapter 473. Mei Shuyan waited for a while. Seeing that there was still no movement, she suddenly sneered and waved her hand. A strong gust of wind silently rolled out. Beside her, there were several towering trees. Any one of them was as thick as a few people hugging their arms around it. But under her palm, they silently trembled for a while, and then with a swoosh, they became wilted. First, it started from the roots, then the trunks. The lower parts of the trees had already turned into a pile of powder. Then, the upper parts continued to fall, turning into powder. Finally, the huge canopy of the trees also began to shrink and fall in the dense mountain forest. The 8 large trees suddenly disappeared. On the ground, there were only 8 piles of fine powder. They were like grayish-white piles of ash that quietly stayed there. Each pile of ash was a standard cone shape and was around 10 feet tall. During this process, not a single sound was emitted. It was as if these 8 trees had never existed in this forest. As for these 8 piles of ash, they had been there since ancient times and had never changed. June Moxie sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of skill is this? With a wave of her hand, the world has turned into mulberry fields? This Mei Shuyan's strength had actually reached such a terrifying level. Mei Shuyan's snow-white robes fluttered gently as she spoke indifferently. June Moxie, you still don't plan to come out? Do you see? Who in your June family can match up to my strength? I will count to 3. If you still can't hold on, I will immediately go to Tianxiang City and kill Junjian Tian and Jun Wui. I know you. You once said that you don't want to be threatened. But this time, I will threaten you. Even if your mysterious master is a match for me, can he protect your family for a lifetime? Will he be able to protect everyone under my command? Her eyes were still looking at the sky indifferently. Her red lips moved slightly as she softly said, 1. But at this time, June Moxie was completely shocked. How did she know that I'm the one lying in ambush here? And how did she say it so confidently? When Mei Shuyan said his name, June Moxie was really nervous. Just as Mei Shuyan had said, with her skills, if she wanted to kill someone, even the 8 great masters couldn't stop her. As he hesitated, he heard Mei Shuyan say, 2. Her beautiful face was slightly raised, and she was still looking at the sky, like an innocent little girl who was counting the stars. However, the decisiveness of these 2 numbers was exceptionally resolute and decisive. Looks like you really don't want to come out. Mei Shuyan sighed softly. That's good too. I'm going to kill Junjian Tian and Jun Wui right now. I hope you can stop me in time. By the way, do you have the ability to stop me? Hurry up and ask your master for help. I hope he can make it in time. As she said this, she stood up lightly, her face full of killing intent, and the surrounding temperature seemed to suddenly drop. Then her body flashed, and her graceful body condensed into a white line in the air. In an instant, she had already moved 200 feet. That direction was the direction to Tianxiang City. Suddenly, wait! June Moxie finally spoke from behind her. Mei Shuyan stood still and slowly turned around. She saw a young man in white standing tall and straight at the place where she had been sitting. The way he looked at her was cold and merciless, sharp and decisive. It's really you. It's really you. Mei Shuyan smiled coldly and gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear and slowly walked back. How are you so sure that it's me? I'm confident that my sect's secret technique is flawless, and no one in this world can break it. June Moxie had already revealed himself, so he didn't need to hide anymore. So he simply and gracefully sat down where Mei Shuyan had been sitting. He grinned and said with a smile, "It's still warm here. My but feels very comfortable." "It's very comfortable." Mei Shuyan's frosty eyes glared fiercely at him. There was a trace of embarrassment in the depths of her eyes. Then, she lightly said, "You told me yourself." "I told you myself?" Jun Moxie was somewhat baffled. "Your secret technique is undoubtedly extraordinary. It's just as you said. I'm afraid that no one in this world can break it. But it's the uniqueness of this technique that tells me. I had carefully observed your movements when you were fighting Xiao Buyu that day. Everyone knows that your movements are ingenious and ever-changing. So, no one can tell where you are. You can appear to the left, then to the right, then to the front, then to the back. But I can see that many of your movements are beyond the scope of a normal movement technique. That's because your body is in a special state every time you disappear. In fact, it's tantamount to you disappearing completely. And you're not hiding. Or you're disappearing at an extraordinary speed. I'm sure of this." She smiled faintly. "And even I can't follow the Snake King with all my strength. That's because her innate talent is a gift from the heavens, and there's absolutely no one who can track her without leaving any traces. But the truth is, Green Hunter has been chased all the way here by someone, and that person has not left any traces at all. Looking at the world now, other than this mysterious ability of your sect, I really can't think of anyone else in this world who can do it. So, I was sure that it was you when the Snake King said that he was being followed. But he couldn't find the person who was following him, because your master wouldn't be so bored." Mei Shuyan looked at Jun Moxie indifferently, and it turns out that my guess was right. You've guessed that it was me, but you still want to threaten me? Do you know that your words have touched my bottom line? Up until now, everyone who has touched my bottom line has paid the heaviest price. No one is an exception. Jun Moxie was very depressed, so he didn't speak in a good mood. "That wasn't a threat. I was just stating a very likely fact. Because if you really don't come out, I will definitely kill the two people I'm talking about." Mei Shuyan said lightly, "I won't joke around with you. I don't need to threaten you to kill two people. So it's not a big deal. Are you forcing me?" Jun Moxie's eyes shot out sharply. He looked at Mei Shuyan coldly and said word by word, "Forcing me to go against you? Do you think you can afford to play with me?" Mei Shuyan laughed and looked at Jun Moxie condescendingly. She waved her sleeves and floated over like a floating cloud. Her eyes were cold and disdainful. "Going against me? I really don't understand where you get such strong confidence. Just because of that illusory master of yours?" Jun Moxie looked at this beautiful face that could make any man's heart flutter. He didn't have the slightest bit of tenderness for the fair sex. He said slowly, "A real man lives in this world. He relies on his own strength. He can't rely on any external power. But, Mei Shuyan, do you think that because you're a woman, you're good at martial arts and have peerless beauty, I won't kill you? Or do you think that I won't kill women? So what?" Mei Shuyan tilted her head slightly. The setting sun shone on her snow-white cheeks. It was almost translucent. She gave off an unreal feeling. "Men and women, to me, are nothing but a bag of skin. No matter how beautiful you are, you'll be a pile of bones after you die. I have no interest in a pile of bones." Jun Moxie's body emitted an evil aura. His eyes slowly became as sharp as a sword. He looked at Mei Shuyan aggressively and said word by word, "So, woman, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of resources you have, you must remember never, ever, ever try to touch my bottom line, or else you'll regret it. You'll have to pay a price that you can't afford. Do you believe me? Now, is it your turn to threaten me?" Mei Shuyan looked up at the sky. There was no fear or anger in her eyes. She asked slowly. She even felt that it was funny. Jun Moxie, who was as weak as an ant in her eyes, was actually threatening her. "Threaten? I don't think I was threatening you just now. I was just stating a fact that is very likely to happen. Besides, so what if I am threatening you?" Jun Moxie laughed coldly. "Why? Are you like me? Don't you accept threats?" Without batting an eyelid, Jun Moxie counterattacked. It was the same threat. However, when Mei Shuyan threatened Jun Moxie felt angry. When it was June Moxie who threatened Mei Shuiyan, Mei Shuiyan felt humiliated. The disparity in status did not allow June Moxie to threaten her. Just as June Moxie finished his sentence, he saw a white shadow flashed in front of him. A palm came slapping towards him. When it was about to reach his cheek, there was a swoosh. Sound in the air. Swoosh. It was too late to dodge. He didn't expect Mei Shuiyan to be so fast. June Moxie's eyes were cold. He didn't dodge. Instead, he flipped his palm and slapped towards the one and only beauty in the world. Merciless. Swoosh. Mei Shuiyan's body leaned back, and June Moxie's palm passed over her cheek with a schwa sound. But because of this, June Moxie also dodged her attack. Both of their bodies moved in the same motion, leaning back and kicking out. Mei Shuiyan's leg was like lightning. It was aimed at June Moxie's knee. June Moxie's right leg kicked out as well. But the target was Mei Shuiyan's dantian. At the same time, Mei Shuiyan's right hand moved in a circle. Her fingers formed a hook, and she clawed at June Moxie's eyes. June Moxie's palm was like an eagle's claw. He clawed downwards. His target was Mei Shuiyan's throat. These two experts unexpectedly used the same method of hand-to-hand combat to vent the anger that had accumulated in their hearts to the extreme. They were entangled with each other with equal harshness. June Moxie didn't have a choice. His xian-qi and spiritual power were both inferior to this unfathomable woman's by more than a level. So he could only use this method. However, Mei Shuiyan actually gave up on the advantages and used the disadvantages. It was somewhat thought-provoking. No matter what, in this kind of close combat, women were always at a disadvantage. Bang! Their bodies flew back at the same time. June Moxie took a step back and staggered. Mei Shuiyan's phoenix eyes were cold. Her pretty face was pale with anger. June Moxie, you are so cruel. I'm ashamed. It's been 2 days. The injured part of my leg hurts like needles. I thought it was better after a year and a half. I didn't expect the temperature to drop sharply these days. Plus, I didn't pay attention to it. So I almost had a big accident. I went to the hospital today. The preliminary diagnosis is that I caught a cold, which caused the disease. It's not a big problem. Tomorrow, I'll go and see if I can get an injection or slowly recuperate. Speaking of which, don't look at this leg as a burden. It's really thanks to it. If it weren't for the fact that I had no income after the accident, I wouldn't have thought of writing books, and I wouldn't have met everyone. I finished half of the legend of Ling Tian on the bed. Now, Evil Prince is almost half. Hee. Wu Shanyin, you said last time, I really envy you. You got 2 Wanding books from a car accident. The car accident is really worth it. I told him, you're jealous? Then go and get 2 books. But he didn't say anything. Well, I'll come out first. I'll go to bed early the next day. I have to go to the hospital early tomorrow. The pain this time made me seem to return to the time when I was at my worst. I suddenly realized the truth. No matter what, I'm still the same phone Ling. I'm still the same phone Ling who advertised everywhere. I reminded myself to always think of myself as the phone Ling the world in the first book. Thank you, everyone. Today, I feel that you are more valuable and rare. Chapter 474. When the two of them exchanged blows, Mei Shuiyan's attacks on June Moxie were ruthless, but they weren't fatal. Even if she had managed to hit him, he would at most be crippled and there would still be room for maneuver. However, every move of June Moxie's was fatal. In the blink of an eye, Mei Shuiyan had already escaped from the gates of hell twice. In the end, she had no choice but to use her xian-qi to repel June Moxie's fierce attacks. She didn't expect that this handsome young man in front of her would be able to use every single move he made. Every single move was fatal. Same here. You're not a good person either. June Moxie smiled faintly and coughed. He had only missed her, but the thrill of it had left him with a lingering fear. He had faced the fate of being crippled 3 or 4 times in a row. If he had even the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex, he was afraid that he would be lying here. Either he would be crippled, or he would be blind and live in the dark. This beautiful woman was really troublesome. I won't take advantage of you. Let's not use our Xin and have a fair fight. Let's see who will emerge victorious. Mei Shuiyan grunted and stepped forward. Before she became a beast king, she had always been known for her dexterity. Even among the millions of Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest, there was no one who could match her dexterity. But this time, she was at a disadvantage against this young man in front of her. In the end, she had to use her full strength to repel him. To her, this was an inconceivable and extremely humiliating thing. She had to regain her dignity. She had to regain it. This was no longer a battle of pride, but a battle of honor. Jun Mo Xie did not show the slightest bit of fear in the face of such an undefeatable enemy. He only chuckled lightly, and his eyes were as cold as ice, as calm as snow, and as silent as a 1,000-year-old glacier. At the same time that Mei Shuiyan's figure moved, he also rushed forward without the slightest delay. Just as young Master Jun charged forward, his jet-black hair seemed to have been pulled straight and fluttered backwards, making a crisp paw sound. Coincidentally or not coincidentally, the two white figures were already entangled with each other before this crisp sound had even dissipated. The two white shadows were so tightly entangled that they seemed inseparable, forming a blurry mass of white. Puff, 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 puff. Nobody knew just how many moves the two of them had unleashed in that instant. This kind of pure hand-to-hand combat completely depended on a person's reflexes and inherent agility. The two of them couldn't really be considered to be fighting a life and death battle. This hand-to-hand combat was probably just a way for the two of them to vent the depression in their hearts. Mei Shuiyan was depressed, very depressed, and extremely depressed. This was because Jun Moxie, a puny human who hadn't even reached the realm of Shen Xian, had dared to threaten her. But she couldn't ignore Jun Moxie's threat. Jun Moxie hadn't said it clearly, but Mei Shuiyan could hear that Jun Moxie was relying on the sacred fruit's elixir. Therefore, Mei Shuiyan felt that she had suffered a loss, and she couldn't avoid this loss. But she felt extremely sullen. Even though she was depressed, this threat had forced her to submit because she had no other choice. However, how could Jun Moxie not be depressed? In fact, he was also very depressed. In fact, he was extremely depressed. The evil monarch had moved unhindered in his two lives, and he was used to being in a superior position. Even though his strength had been low in the past, he had still been able to manipulate the great masters and the beast kings of Tian Fa in the palm of his hand. So, when had he ever been threatened by others? But this time, he had been threatened by Mei Shuiyan. So, he had no choice but to come out. But Jun Moxie couldn't ignore Mei Shuiyan's threat. In fact, he couldn't ignore it, because they were his family in this life. In fact, they were the only family he had in his two lives. And they were irreplaceable. Therefore, Jun Moxie felt that he had suffered a loss. And this loss was also very sullen. But even though he was depressed, this threat forced him to submit because he had no other choice. Apart from the fact that they had different reasons for submitting, the two of them were surprisingly in the same state of mind. Moreover, they were the kind of people who would eat anything. They weren't willing to suffer a loss. But they had suffered a loss at each other's hands. So they had no choice but to eat. If it had been someone else, they would have laughed it off. But these two people were opposing each other with equal harshness. So, neither of them was willing to suffer a loss. They were evenly matched, and both of them had suffered a loss. But they both believed that they could win. Since they were at a disadvantage in words, then they would return the favor with their fists and feet. Let's see who would be the one laughing in the end. Moreover, the two of them were bound to cooperate due to the existence of the Tian Fa's sacred fruit in the Tian Fa forest. But the outcome of this fight would determine their positions in the future, the weight of their words. In this exchange, both of them had used all of their trump cards. Jun Moxie had a habit of going all out against his enemies. It didn't matter how weak the enemy was. As long as he could kill them in one move, he would never use a second move. It was like a lion pouncing on a rabbit. After all, killing the enemy was the best way to protect oneself. He had always practiced this golden rule. This was the greatest experience of the king of assassins. However, Mei Shuiyin was much more tactful, and she was able to resolve some of Jun Mo's moves because of her tactfulness. In fact, she was able to counter Jun Mo's moves after that. In fact, Mei Shuiyin would only be able to counter one move after several moves if the young master's moves were too closely linked. Therefore, the battle between the two men had become increasingly intense. The speed of the two white shadows was getting faster and faster as they fought. In fact, it seemed as if two tornadoes were intertwining with each other. In fact, it was impossible to tell who was who in the end. And this had left the Snake King, who had stealthily sneaked back, gobsmacked. There were many kinds of Xian beasts in the Tianfa forest. In fact, it could be said that there were all kinds of strange things. But none of them could compete with Big Sister in terms of agility. Even Long Crane and I, the third Crane King, who were also known for their agility, couldn't compete with Big Sister in 100 moves. But this brat is obviously a human being, but he's actually on par with Big Sister. Moreover, the frequency of his attacks is faintly superior to Big Sister's. How is this possible? Is he really a human being? The more Mei Shuiyin fought, the more depressed she became. However, the depression she felt this time was different from before. This depression came from the threat of Jun Mo's strength. This brat is too sinister. Every move he makes, every single one of his attacks are fatal. It didn't matter how I dodged or how incisive my counterattacks were, but he was always able to find the most vulnerable parts of my body and then counterattack. The most speechless thing was that he didn't seem to be aware that his opponent was a woman. Moreover, she was a peerless beauty. In fact, he didn't seem to care about the taboo parts of his opponent's body. He didn't care about attacking the chest, the lower abdomen, the genitals, the eyes, the throat. He didn't care about attacking the fatal parts. Each and every one of his attacks was crafty and ruthless. In fact, he would occasionally attack the non-fatal parts of his opponent's body, but he would always attack the vital joints of her body. And Mei Shuiyin could imagine that even a great master-level expert would feel extremely uncomfortable if he were to get hit by his attacks. Even I'm no exception to that. How can there be such a skill? Mei Shuiyin faced Jun Moxie's attacks. She suddenly had a feeling that this guy's every move had only one purpose, and that was to kill his opponent. Even Xian beasts who didn't have a good impression of humans rarely had such a degree of ruthlessness. But Jun Moxie just happened to have it. In terms of agility, Mei Shuiyin was confident that her innate talent in agility was much higher than Jun Moxie's. But in the face of Jun Moxie's extremely frequent and ruthless roguish fighting style, she actually felt a little strained. This was because even when this guy was attacking her with all his might, he was still able to protect his vital parts very well. He was like a porcupine with nowhere to bite. His attack and defense were almost flawless. It was as if he was aware of the openings of his moves, as well as the possible flaws. Before he made his move, he was already fully prepared. Once Mei Shuiyin attacked these openings, the openings would instantly turn into a fatal trap. What a terrifying fighting style. What a perfect technique. Mei Shuiyin had faced countless enemies in her life, but she had never seen such a ruthless person. He was extremely clear about his own strengths and weaknesses. He was even more clear about his own weaknesses. He was also able to instantly detect and attack the openings of his enemies. He was simply a monster. If she were to hit him twice, she definitely wouldn't be able to hit his vital parts. At least, she wouldn't be able to hit him where he would be heavily injured. But during the 2 hits, he would be able to hit himself. Moreover, it would be an extremely uncomfortable spot. If she were to hit him twice, he would be able to ignore it. But if he were to hit himself, it would definitely be fatal. At the very least, he would lose a considerable amount of fighting ability. Of course, if she were to use her own Yuan Shi, even if she were to hit Jun Moxie's toes, she would be able to use the power of pulling a hair to affect the whole body and directly shatter his entire body into pieces. But she had made it clear before the fight that both parties were not allowed to use Xian Qi to end this fight. With her status and fighting with such a young man, how could she go back on her words? What Mei Xuyin didn't know was that Da Xiao was also having a hard time. June Moxie secretly groaned. This woman's agility was too terrifying. This agility didn't refer to her movements, but to her body. Her entire body, whether it was her body or her techniques, were all extremely nimble. She was like a loach dipped in oil, slippery and slippery. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't land a solid hit on her. Sometimes, when he was 90% sure that he would land a hit, she would suddenly dodge it. As they fought, June Moxie's mind suddenly flashed. He took a step back and shouted, "Along the way to Tiannan, were you the one who targeted and schemed against me at every turn?" Mei Xuyan's cold expression didn't change. Taking advantage of Da Xiao's sudden retreat, she pounced on him like a whirlwind. 19 punches, 27 palms, 13 elbows, and 36 kicks followed by a torrential downpour. Her mocking voice was accompanied by a torrential downpour. "You only reacted now? You're really too slow. Did you enjoy the feast along the way? Did you enjoy it?" Chapter 475. This young master has never said that I'm a good person, right? But don't talk about big brother and second brother. We're all the same. Miss May isn't a good person. June Moxie smiled and asked curiously, "Dare I ask, miss, how do you address Town Fa's Venerable May?" "Venerable May?" Mei Xuyan rolled her eyes and cursed in her heart. She chuckled and said, "That's my big brother. So that's how it is." June Moxie thought in his heart, "No wonder their skills are the same. Mother asterisk her, this young master has suffered losses because of that world cage. So, it turns out that they're brother and sister. A pair of unlucky May brother and sister." It was no wonder that June Moxie would think this way. After all, the venerable May who had appeared in the Tian Fa forest and intimidated everyone was a man no matter how one looked at it. Whether it was his voice or his fighting skills, he was a sturdy and valiant man. On the other hand, Mei Xuyin in front of him was a woman. Moreover, she was a peerless beauty with peerless beauty. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. June Moxie's imagination was very rich, but he would never be able to imagine that this Mei Xuyin before him was the peerless beauty who had beaten his buttocks swollen. And his buttocks had been beaten swollen by him. But this peerless beauty was the venerable May who had abused him in the Tian Fa forest battlefield. Young Master June, you humans have a very good saying. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. This seat will speak bluntly. We're looking for you because of your master. You probably know why we're looking for you. Saying too much would make our Tian Fa seem petty. But your master's knowledge is unfathomable. He's like a dragon that shows its head but not its tail. Mei Xuyin said calmly, "So, we want to know some news about your master. Even if it's just a little bit, it's fine. Please tell us that this seat and your master have an important matter to discuss." "Oh." June Moxie tilted his head. "Of course, if it is really inconvenient for young Master June to say it, then forget it," Mei Xuyin said with a faint smile, retreating in order to advance. The profound beasts of the Tian Fa forest would never understand the importance of the sacred fruit. Therefore, although Mei Xuyin was traveling, she still chose to follow June Moxie. The main reason was that he was still worried about this matter. "Well, this matter is very inconvenient. Thank you for your understanding, Miss May." June Moxie took advantage of the situation and said with a mischievous smile. Mei Xuyin was speechless. After a while, she said, "June Moxie, you really aren't a gentleman." Up until now, she had already given June Moxie 2 comments. He really isn't a good person, not a gentleman at all. Miss words are somewhat confusing. I've just admitted that I've never been a good person. So, it's naturally impossible for me to be a gentleman since I'm not a good person. June Moxie shrugged his shoulders and said with a mischievous smile, "Being a good person is very easy to get hurt, but being a gentleman is very tiring. Therefore, you can treat me as a rogue or a bully. You can also treat me as a bad guy or a devil. But don't ever treat me as a good person or a gentleman. You'll suffer a loss if you do that." Hee hee. What are you talking about? Don't you humans want to be good people? Don't you call yourself a gentleman? I really don't understand why you don't want to be a good person. Don't tell me that the so-called thousand-year moral inheritance has been abandoned by you humans. Don't tell me that I don't understand the current moral standards of you humans. Mei Shuyan said in a bad mood. Ever since she started her career, she had dealt with many troublesome people. But when faced with such a lazy Jun Moxie, she couldn't do anything about it. Jun Moxie laughed heartily and said, "This can't be generalized. Let me tell you a story. There were two people who lived with 7 or 8 other families. Among these two people, one of them was recognized as a rogue, and a fugitive. But the other one was recognized as a good person. This fugitive was feared and hated by everyone. As for the good person, he would go out to fetch water every morning. He would fill up all the water tanks of his neighbors. When the neighbors needed help, he would do his best. So, everyone liked him very much. With him at home, everyone felt at ease. Suddenly, one day, when the fugitive was returning from a robbery, he was in a panic and bumped into someone. He even killed the person that he knocked down. Coincidentally, the person that he ran into was another bad guy. At that time, he was about to molest a pitiful woman. Even though it was an unintentional act, it was still a great deed. So, everyone praised him, saying that he was a prodigal son who turned over a new leaf. They reported him to the authorities and set him up as a model. For a while, everyone was praising him, and everyone forgot about his past misdeeds. Mei Shuyan didn't know what he meant by this. She didn't understand why he would suddenly tell a story when they were in the middle of a conversation. But she guessed that he must have his reasons. So, she listened quietly and didn't interrupt him. Qian Sun's Serpent Queen also sat quietly at the side, listening quietly. Jun Moxie smiled and continued. Another day, the person who was recognized as a good person fell seriously ill. He couldn't get out of bed in the morning. He had a bad fever. He didn't have any strength in his body. He was thirsty and wanted to drink some water. But there wasn't any water in the water tank. He shouted, but no one was home. So, he got out of bed and went to fetch a bucket of water. But he was too tired and had no strength. He filled his water tank and went to lie on the bed. In the afternoon, the neighbors came back. They were used to the good person fetching water for them. But when they came home, they were tired and thirsty. But they found that the water tank was empty. Instantly, they were furious. So, they rushed to the good person's house to denounce him. But they found that the good person was lying on the bed drinking water. Immediately, they became angry and scolded. Selfish bastard. So, he was pretending to be sick and slacking at home, eating alone. So, the good person was immediately alienated by everyone. Everyone said, after getting along with him for so long, we've all been cheated by him. Turns out, he's such a selfish person. Jun Moxie finally finished his story. He laughed mockingly and said, "What is a good person? What is a bad person? It's nothing more than the narrow-minded view of a bunch of fools. Just like how the common people look at officials. An official is clean, upright, and uncorrupted. But if the common people under his rule don't have enough to eat, everyone will scold him as a bastard, an ignorant and incompetent mediocre official. As for the other official, he's like a vampire. His greed is insatiable, and he's never satisfied with wealth. As an official, he wishes that the sky is as high as 9 feet. But the common people under his rule can eat their fill and live in peace. So, everyone says that he's a great official who benefits the common people. This is the moral view of humans in modern society. Jun Moxie, why do I have to live in other people's view? What's the benefit of being a good person? What good results can there be? What's the harm of being a bad person? I'm Jun Moxie, and me. When I want to do something, the whole world says that I shouldn't do it. But I still have to do it. I will still do it. Because I want to. When I don't want to do something, everyone says that it will be remembered for eternity. You should do it, you must do it. But I don't want to do it. Because I don't want to do it. My life philosophy is just that simple. There's no such thing as good or bad. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There's only one thing. Jun Moxie laughed loudly. 1,000 gold can't buy my willingness. Mei Shuiyin was stunned. After a long time, she shook her head and sighed. After listening to your fallacy, I really don't know if I should say that you're open-minded or stubborn. Actually, what you said isn't wrong. Maybe this is the common problem of you humans. What you said is not completely correct. It's not only us humans. Aren't you Shin beasts the same? Everyone despises and looks down on bad people. Unknowingly, they feel that they're superior to him. So, when this bad person turns over a new leaf, everyone feels that it's not easy. A good person would always be diligent in helping others. When others were used to his help, they would feel grateful, but at the same time, they would also feel that he was stronger than them. With this kind of thinking, once a good person does something wrong or neglects something, others will criticize him 100 times harsher than usual. It's even more unforgivable. It's like pulling a god down from the altar. So, he's not even as good as us. Jun Moxie said calmly. So, being a good person is really tiring. As for being a gentleman, you need to be a good person on the basis of being a good person. So, being a gentleman is even more difficult. And the so-called hero is a step further on the basis of being a good person and a gentleman. That's not tiring, it's miserable. So, I'd rather be a bad person. I'd rather be a bad person, Jun Moxie said quietly. I also want to be a strong person. As for good people and bad people, I never think about it. I'm just curious. People like you who came from the Tian Fa forest, why are you so obsessed with good people and bad people? Don't you all believe in the strong? Could it be that your views have changed? Mei Shuiyin was startled. That's right. The basic and biggest principle of the Tian Fa forest is that the strong are respected. But why am I so conflicted at this moment? Why am I arguing about good people and bad people? To me, good people and bad people don't make any difference. Am I still human? Could it be that when I transformed into a human, I actually accepted the moral values of humans? Young Master Jun is right. It seems that I'm really stubborn. Mei Shuiyin laughed at herself. Maybe it's not that you're stubborn. Maybe I'm just too open-minded. Jun Moxie smiled indifferently. Actually, people like me are more suitable to live in the Tian Fa forest and not in the mortal world. That's not true. With your personality, no matter where you live, the first person you won't treat unfairly is yourself. And only yourself. Mei Shuiyin made a rare joke. Of course, this young master is best at taking advantage of others. I'll risk my life to take advantage of others. I'd rather die than be at a disadvantage. Jun Moxie snorted and rubbed his hands. He even brought them up to his nose and sniffed them. His face revealed a soulful smile. He twirled his fingers and smacked his lips twice. It was obvious that he was thinking about the advantage he had taken earlier. Chapter 476. You mentioned cooperation a moment ago. Jun Moxie mischievously smiled. But I don't know what your proposal is. He thought in his heart. Your Tian Fa's Beast Kings have already cooperated with me. You still don't know this, silly girl. Yes, it's cooperation. Mei Shuiyin's complexion became solemn. The Tian Fa forest needs to enhance its strength. We need to deal with the imminent clash with the three holy lands and decide who's the winner. We won't be able to do so in time if we follow the normal speed of enhancement. Therefore, we must rely on external forces to enhance our strength. Mei Shuiyin had a dignified look in her eyes as she deeply looked at Jun Moxie. For example, we can use the Tian Fa's sacred fruit to refine a similar elixir. Moreover, only one elixir for each of us will be far from enough. And we don't have this kind of elixir. But your master can refine it. I heard that your master had once refined a divine pill that could increase one's pure cultivation by 10 years without any side effects. What we want is exactly that kind of thing. However, if it's only 10 years of cultivation, isn't it a little too little? Jun Moxie frowned. What you mean is that you want a kind of elixir that doesn't conflict with the Tian Fa's sacred fruit. Moreover, it can also increase your strength. Then, you can use this elixir to increase the strength of the 10 Beast Kings as quickly as possible. Then, you can use the elixir refined from the Tian Fa's sacred fruit to try to break through again. In other words, You want to break through 2 bottlenecks in a row in the shortest amount of time. And you want to increase your strength by 2 levels? That's right. Smart people say smart things. That's exactly what I mean. Mei Shuiyan's beautiful eyes glanced at him. She then calmly said, "But I can't find your master. So, I can only look for you." Miss May, I really want to tell you that your idea is very ridiculous. It's too whimsical. I believe that you should also know that your request will put us in a difficult position. My master is a genius. But I can only tell you that I'm afraid that your plan will fail. Jun Moxie wrinkled his brows and said, "It can be seen from the refining of the sacred fruit that refining this kind of divine pill requires luck and coincidence. Secondly, it requires a complete set of medicinal ingredients. Moreover, the medicinal ingredients involved are all top-notch spirit herbs. Thirdly, he needed a lot of time. Lastly, he needed a lot of energy. Even if all 4 conditions are met, it still depends on the will of the heavens to see if I can refine it. The success rate is really hard to control. In addition, there are no exceptions to any medicine used to increase one's cultivation. There are bound to be certain limitations. More often than not, after taking the first pill and waiting for the body to adapt to the enhancement or stimulation, the second or third pill would be useless. Otherwise, it would be like the 10 years pill. If it could be used continuously, then wouldn't one have 10,000 years of cultivation after taking 1,000 of them? Therefore, this is something that can't be done. I can only say that your original idea is too unrealistic. I think you should also understand what I'm trying to say. If you want to increase your cultivation in a short period of time, then you must refine at least 3 kinds of miraculous pills. And each of these pills must have a formidable effect of at least 30 years. Moreover, the medicinal ingredients required for each pill can't be the slightest bit repetitive, so that you can smoothly reach the next bottleneck. The most important thing is that you can break through in one fell swoop after taking the sacred fruit. This is tantamount to saying that my master doesn't need to do anything for a long period of time. He can only refine pills for you in order to achieve this. Don't you think that you're going too far by asking for such an exorbitant price? Do you think that my master is someone who could be ordered around? I also know that this is very excessive. How could I not know what kind of existence your master is? But we have no other way. Mei Shuyan calmly said, 3 years from now, no, it should be 2 years and 9 months from now, will be the 3 holy and 1 ferocious beasts ranking tournament. According to the current situation, whether it's Hermitage, the Great Golden City, or the Boundless Blood Sea, the Tian Fa Forest will lose without a doubt. But this is the transcendental position that the Tian Fa Forest has maintained for 9,000 years. If it were to be lost from my big brother's hands, then the consequences would be unthinkable. We Xian beasts have always been discriminated against in this continent. We've only been able to squeeze into the 3 holy and 1 ferocious beasts ranking tournament by relying on our tyrannical strength. If we were to lose this, then the Tian Fa Forest would no longer be the Tian Fa Forest. Mei Shuiyan's expression was somewhat pained and self-deprecating. But Jun Moxie knew that a powerhouse like Mei Shuiyan had revealed such an expression. It could be said that she was at the end of her rope. Jun Moxie frowned as he paced back and forth. He was inwardly hesitant. Jun Moxie naturally knew that if he were to help the Tian Fa Forest this time, then it would be tantamount to forming an eternal ally. The Xian beasts had a long lifespan, not to mention the current Jun family. Even their future generations would be able to do whatever they wanted in this continent without any misgivings. That would truly be the endless collapse of his descendants. The price was only a few pills. It was easy to say, but he could only refine one of these pills at the moment. He would need to reach the 4th or 5th level of the Hongjun Pagoda in order to refine the others. As for the pills with the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit as the main ingredient, he would need to open the 6th level of the Hongjun Pagoda to refine them. The only result would be that all the heavenly treasures would turn into ashes if his cultivation wasn't up to that level. I only have 2 years and 9 months. Can I really break through to the 6th level? However, Jun Moxie wasn't sure about this. The advancement of the Hong Jun Pagoda and the art of unlocking heaven's fortune was extremely difficult. Jun Moxie was well aware of this. He had advanced by leaps and bounds in less than a year's time. He had broken through to the 3rd level like a hot knife through butter. But this achievement was only the foundation of the first 3 levels. The higher the level, the more the requirements would be. In fact, the requirements would increase exponentially. This king knows that it's difficult for your master and disciple. But if your master and disciple agree to cooperate with us, then we'll provide whatever ingredients you need during the process of refining the pills. Our Tian Fa forest will provide them. It doesn't matter if it's at the bottom of the sea, on the snowy mountains, or if it's extremely hot or extremely cold. We'll give you our full support. Mei Shuiyan clasped her hands behind her back. Moreover, we won't doubt your master and disciple's conditions. It doesn't matter if they're reasonable or unreasonable. Any conditions. Jun Moxie's heart skipped a beat. Any conditions. Jun Moxie's biggest dream was to be able to build his own business in the Tian Fa forest. From then on, he would be able to roam the continent without any worries. And the Beast King of the Tian Fa forest. Jun Moxie really liked it. That kind of temperament was very much to Jun Dashao's liking. Even if there weren't any benefits, Jun Moxie still intended to help. What's more, there were benefits. Moreover, it was such a huge benefit. This was an irresistible temptation. Jun Moxie gritted his teeth. Mother of asterisk Kerr, there's no motivation without pressure. Isn't it just the 6th level of the Hong Jun Pagoda? This young master was able to advance to the 3rd level in half a year. Why can't I advance to the 3rd level in 2 years? I'll risk it. It's nothing more than forcing this young master to train harder. The increase in strength would be equally beneficial to him. I personally don't think there's any problem with this, but I still need to seek my master's opinion. After all, whether it succeeds or not still depends on his wishes. But don't worry, I will try my best to facilitate this cooperation. As for the conditions, it won't be too late to talk about it later. I can't make this decision. Young lady, Mei won't believe me even if I say that I'll agree to it, right? Jun Mo, Xie rolled his eyes. He obviously wouldn't reveal his cards at this time. If he let others know that the mysterious black-robed man, the invincible expert, was him, the consequences would be unimaginable. All of his enemies would flock to him. Even if they didn't have any grudges against him, they would have the thought of destroying him in the bud. So, this was a secret that he couldn't reveal until he was strong enough to dominate the world. Not even to his closest kin. I understand. Thank you, young Master Jun. Mei Shuiyan's lips moved a little as she spoke in a low voice. But that so-called 3 holy lands, what are they? Can Miss Mei dispel my doubts? Jun Moxie finally had the opportunity to ask this question. This question had been troubling Jun Dashao's heart for a long time. The people of the secular world didn't even know about the existence of the Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor. Only a few of the more powerful families could run amok in the world. The Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor were the top existences in the hearts of the Xian experts. In fact, even Jun Moxie had thought so before he had arrived at the Southern Heaven City. But he had suddenly realized that there was always a higher mountain, and the 3 holy lands had suddenly appeared in the world. The Tian Fa forest was widely recognized as a dangerous place. Everyone knew that. But what were the 3 holy lands? From the sound of it, these places seemed to be on a higher level than the Silver Blizzard City. This was enough to make Jun Moxie flabbergasted. He had been thinking since then, is there a higher level of existence than the 3 holy lands? If there is, then what level have these people reached? However, the biggest question at the moment was, why haven't there been any legends about these places? The 3 holy lands and the ferocious lands started 9,000 years ago. The entire Xian continent was thrown into chaos at that time. Of course, powerful experts emerged one after another in such an environment. The times create heroes, and the heroes create the times. Mei Shuiyan smiled bitterly as she slowly explained. Chapter 477, Pillar of Heaven's Mountains. That's the tallest mountain in the Xian continent, right? The one at the southernmost point of the Xian continent. It's said that this mountain is tens of thousands of meters high, stretching for hundreds of thousands of miles, piercing straight into the blue sky, from one side of the continent to the other. According to ancient legends, this mountain is the end of the sky, not to mention humans or animals. Even eagles can't fly over it. It had always been uninhabited, and no one had ever been able to conquer it. The pillar of heaven's mountains, connected to the heavens, gods and demons can't climb it. Jun Moxie naturally knew about this mountain, and he was very interested in it. On Earth, how big was the largest mountain range, the Kunlun Mountains? But this pillar of heaven's mountains was actually so tall, even taller than Mount Everest, and it almost spanned across the entire planet. This was a miracle among miracles. So Jun Daxiao always wanted to climb up and take a look. Yes, at that time, for some unknown reason, a part of the pillar of heaven's mountains suddenly collapsed. At that time, flames shot up thousands of feet, and countless rocks flew up, flying for tens of miles. All the commoners who lived near the pillar of heaven's mountains were killed or injured. Even a spirit Xian expert wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. In fact, the entire earth was trembling. In fact, many places were surging with heat that could melt gold and stone. This was a catastrophe that would affect the entire world. After the catastrophe, the Xian continent lost more than 10 million people. And after that, the side of the pillar of heaven's mountains suddenly collapsed by more than half. Originally, no one could climb it, and no birds could climb it. But after that, although humans still couldn't climb it, the difficulty was much lower. This part of the mountain was several miles long. However, it was also because of this that people discovered something. So the Xian continent didn't end at the pillar of heaven's mountains. There was another world beyond the pillar of heaven's mountains. Mei Shuiyan's voice became heavy. Jun Moxie finally guessed that the story must be behind that mountain range. The catastrophe that Mei Shuiyan was talking about must be a huge volcanic eruption and an earthquake. After the mountain collapsed, two strange-looking things suddenly appeared from the other side. Or I should say people. Mei Shuiyan continued. And these two weird-looking people had a huge conflict with the elites of the Pillars of Sky mountain range. In the end, several Supreme Being experts joined forces and barely managed to kill them. However, there were a lot of them crawling over from that place. Even a supreme martial artist is unable to fight against a large number of freaks. However, if these grotesquely shaped and abnormally strong people are allowed to invade the entire continent, they will definitely cause unimaginable harm. Thus, almost all the profound practitioners in the world have gathered to the north of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains to stop them with all their might. This is the first war for seizing the heavens. Mei Shuiyan let out a deep sigh. The entire continent united as one and united as an impregnable fortress. Finally, we managed to repel those freaks. However, during the battle, everyone gradually realized that those below the Great Master Realm would only be sacrificing themselves in vain when facing those freaks. Even a fourth-grade immortal Xian quasi-great Master Realm expert wouldn't be able to harm those freaks, even if he were to use his full strength against them. Thus, this battle became a battle between the top Xian practitioners. As for those whose strength had not reached the Supreme Being level, they were all sent back. There was really no need to sacrifice them in vain. It was also at that time that the Xian continent, in order to more effectively stop these outsiders, formed four major powers. They were Hermitage, Supreme Golden City, and Illusory Blood Sea. In addition, this was ultimately a battle that concerned the fate of the entire continent. Thus, the Xian beasts, beast kings, and beast venerables also participated in this battle. At that time, Tianfa Forest was the strongest force among the four forces. Thus, with Tianfa Forest as the main force, it was known as the most dangerous place in the universe. The three Holy Lands selected the strongest human Xian practitioners. If one of them reached the bottleneck of the Supreme Being level, they would be taken in by the three holy lands. Then, they would wait for the next war for seizing the heavens. During this period, they were not allowed to go out except to practice their Xian techniques, because any slack could lead to the failure of the war for seizing the heavens. And the failure of the war for seizing the heavens would lead to a catastrophe for the entire human race. Thus, the three holy lands are basically the concentration camp of the strongest in the Xian continent. Furthermore, only the truly strong can enter the three holy lands. As for our Tianfa forest, we are after all Xian beasts. Human experts would definitely not join us. Thus, as time passed, the three holy lands became more and more prosperous. But the Tianfa forest had its own natural elimination rules, so remained the same. Thus, the Tianfa forest, which was the strongest force among the four forces at that time, was now on the decline. In order to better prevent the invasion of the monsters, the three holy lands chose extremely harsh environments. But it was very beneficial to the improvement of the martial practitioners. Thus, as time passed, the three holy lands gradually faded out of the eyes of the world. Other than the occasional Xian practitioners who went down the mountains to search for the bottleneck of the Supreme Being level to enter the Holy Lands, there was basically no trace of them in the world. For thousands of years, they were gradually forgotten. But the war for seizing the heavens never stopped. This is the origin of the three holy lands and one ferocious lands. Mei Shuyan looked at the distant sky. So that's how it is. Jun Moxie was a little confused by what he heard, so he casually agreed. But there was some admiration in his heart. It turned out that behind the prosperity of the secular world, there were so many people secretly protecting this continent. And in the war on the other side, they only paid silently and sacrificed silently. Just based on this point, it was no wonder that they were called Holy Lands. That's why I'm a little surprised that your master, who has such a high level of cultivation, is still able to live a free and unfettered life. Mei Shuyan lightly rolled her eyes and looked at Jun Moxie. Maybe it's because of my master's indifferent personality. He never shows his face in public. Jun Moxie laughed. Maybe. It's just that in the recent 1,000 years, the three holy lands and one ferocious lands have been fighting openly and secretly. They have long forgotten their original intentions. This is also an important reason. I'm sure that many experts have been bitterly disappointed. The three holy lands are no longer the three holy lands of the past. Mei Shuyan sighed and stared blankly for a while. Then, she continued to speak. Later, after fighting every day, everyone was exhausted. So, they proposed a decisive battle. After all, those who could come over from their side were also the best of the best. Moreover, the weather south of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains was extremely cold. It was not a place where normal people could live. So, the monsters from that side also wanted to come here. But if they came, they would definitely harm the interests of this side. Moreover, those people were despicable and dirty and were despised by everyone. So, no matter what, they were not allowed to come here. Later, it became a tradition to have a decisive battle every 10 years. But later, they felt that 10 years was too short. Both sides didn't have enough time to rest, so they changed it to 100 years. Then, in that war for seizing the heavens, the strength of the three holy lands and one ferocious lands rose to an unprecedented level. They actually killed all the strange races who came for the decisive battle. This greatly damaged their vitality. So, they did not come for the next 100 years. Only after 200 years did they make a comeback. But, no matter how ferocious they were all blocked by the strong people of the three holy lands and one ferocious lands. So, for a long time, things have been repeating like this. Until now, it has become a once every 500 years. Mei Shuyan sighed. The longer time dragged on, from a period of 10 years to the current 500 years. To them, there are many benefits and no harm, because at every moment, they want to get rid of that terrible environment. So, they're constantly working hard. But to our side, 500 years is really too long. It is so long that we can replace a few generations. It is so long that we can forget the terrible consequences. Although the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious land still exist, it is not the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands of the past. And from an unknown time, the people of the 3 holy lands actually started to step into the continent. Some of them even secretly controlled the royal power of the world. As time went on, the changes became more and more intense. In the recent 100 years, the struggle for power and profit had actually become the direction of the 3 holy lands' secret struggle. It is really pitiful and lamentable. Until now, I still can't understand. With the 3 holy lands' high and mighty position, why do they still need these worldly things? Mei Shuiyin said with some melancholy. And the most heart-wrenching thing is that the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious land are actually going to start some ranking battle. Just for the sake of ranking first and last, they were actually fighting so hard. Who knew how much strength they had wasted on this kind of internal strife? It is really a pity, and the next war for seizing the heavens is also in the next few years. At that time, after 9,000 years of defending, this time is not very optimistic. I am really worried. Mei Shuiyin's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of melancholy. Although we are Xian beasts and not humans, we still see ourselves as a part of the Xian continent. Since 9,000 years, the number of warriors of our Tian Fa forest who have died in the war for seizing the heavens has always been the highest among the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands. We have long regarded this war for seizing the heavens as our duty, because we have already lost too much blood because of this. Although I, Mei Shuiyin, look down on the humans of this continent, what we protect is this vast continent, not these filthy humans. And this responsibility of protecting the continent belongs to us, Tian Fa, and we can't shirk from it. Tian Fa's 10,000 years of glory cannot be lost in my hands. So we must raise our strength this time. We must make Tian Fa's strength soar at all costs. If the humans are unable to resist the invasion of the strange races in the war for seizing the heavens, then let us, the Tian Fa forest, use our bodies to push them back. At the very least, we will be able to perish together with our enemies. So we must participate in the war for seizing the heavens. But if we want to participate, we must continue to be in the ranks of the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands. Otherwise, we won't even have the qualifications to participate in the war for seizing the heavens. Hearing this, Jun Moxie couldn't help but feel deep veneration. Jun Mo Xie had said that he wasn't a good person, and he wasn't a gentleman either. In fact, he didn't even care about being a hero. But he still admired and exclaimed in admiration towards those who were truly heroic. Just like Yu Fei, Yu Wu Mu in the history of his previous life, and the white-robed divine monarch, Wu Hui, whom he admired in this life. Chapter 478. From what you've described, the longer this decisive battle is dragged out, the more it smells like a conspiracy. Jun Moxie seriously considered this matter for the first time and said, previously, the time limit was extended from 10 years to 100 years. This is understandable, because in 100 years, not only can you Xian Bi survive, even the super experts of the human race have the opportunity to participate in 2 or even 3 or 4 war for seizing the heavens. But to suddenly extend to 500 years, the Xian beasts are still okay, but for us humans, it is an extremely sinister plan. Jun Moxie raised a finger. As we all know, once the cultivation of Xian Qi reaches the Earth Xian level, one can use Xian Qi to extend one's life. With the cultivation of Shun Xian, one can basically live up to 150 to 200 years old, and if one can go one step further and reach the supreme level, one can extend one's life again, but it will not exceed the limit of 350 years. This was what Jun Moxie had learned from Solitary Eagle. However, even the Solitary Falcon didn't know what was above the Great Master Realm. In fact, the experts above the supreme level also exist, and they can basically live up to 400 to 600 years old. I believe that your master's cultivation should have reached this level. And in fact, according to the records of Tion FA, the experts who can go one step further in this level can even have a longer life. But it is very rare because the experts who can reach this level, at most 3 to 5 people in 1,000 years. That's all. Or you can say it like this: the experts who have participated in the war for seizing the heavens. If calculated in the current 500 years, most of them will not have the opportunity to participate in the next war for seizing the heavens. Because to be qualified to participate in the war for seizing the heavens, at least 1 to 200 years of cultivation to reach such a level. But the next war for seizing the heavens is 500 years later. With the lifespan of humans, it's impossible for them to last until the next battle. No matter how talented an expert is, he or she is limited by his or her strength and can only shine once. Therefore, regarding the war for seizing the heavens, we can only rely on the inheritance of the torch to the fullest flame. Mei Shuyan sighed deeply. After all, those who rely on mystical abilities to live for thousands of years only exist in legends and legends. Every war for seizing the heavens is a most miserable and desolate catastrophe. Every expert who participated in the war, no matter how powerful they were, would be prepared to die. They would bring their own direct disciples with them, and let their disciples watch from the sidelines, witness the savagery of the outsiders, and the sacrifice of their own masters. In this way, generation after generation, the torch fire will be passed on. Mei Shuiyan's beautiful eyes became a little misty. I was fortunate enough to be brought along by the previous generation's holy king of Tion Fa to watch the war for seizing the heavens. At that time, I was only a little 7th level. She didn't finish her sentence. Instead, she sighed deeply. The previous generations of Saint Kings of Tion Fa have stated clearly that the extension of time is a conspiracy of the outsiders. They can wait for 500 years and are willing to wait. But we can't. Although they also need to replace the old generation, the living conditions on their side are too terrible. In accordance with the principle of eliminating the weak and leaving the strong, survival of the fittest, every generation has produced countless strong experts. But for our side of the continent, there are a lot of gaps. It's too long, and the habitual forgetfulness of humans is the greatest natural enemy of fighting spirit. If that's the case, why don't we just climb over the mountain and slaughter the outsiders? Wouldn't that be better? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. Do you think that the countless experts of the past are fools? If this plan could work, it would have come true a long time ago. There were experts who had tried this method long ago, but those who could climb over that mountain were all experts among experts, experts among experts. In the entire continent, there are only a few dozen of them in every generation. And on the other side, there are also many experts waiting, eyeing them like tigers watching their prey. Furthermore, there are millions of the outsiders, and their residences are scattered all over the place. How can we slaughter them all in one go? If we go over rashly, I'm afraid that we will be slaughtered to the last one. The Pillar of Heaven's mountains is not only a natural moat for the outsiders, it is also a natural moat for us, Mei Shuyan scoffed and said, settling it once and for all is naturally a good thing, but we can't do it. Based on the current situation, it is already very difficult to maintain that we are not invaded, not to mention attacking. Furthermore, the environment on the side of the outsiders is extremely vile. Even if humans or Xianbis go there, it will be hard to even guarantee the basic survival conditions. There is no way we can cause a huge massacre. Jun Moxie was silent, but he was calculating in his heart. This matter was indeed difficult, and there were many difficulties that were hard to resolve. First, the 3 saints and 1 ferocious beast had their own plans and could not work together. Second, they did not have a strong team. If there were 300 to 500 people with the cultivation of a supreme martial artist, and they could give orders in unison, once they successfully crossed over, even if they could not annihilate them in one go, they would definitely hurt the outsiders greatly. Even if the outsiders eliminated the weak and kept the strong, It was impossible for everyone to be strong. Thinking about this, Jun Moxie could not help but think of his personal subordinates, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. If it was them, then, thinking about it, Jun Moxie could not help but shake his head. Right now, those people's murderous intent was enough, but their personal strength was too low. The strongest among them was only at the beginning of the Earth Xian realm, and he was afraid that they would not even be able to climb up that mountain. But if another few decades passed, he shook his head, it would be too late. A man should kill, and when he kills, he should be young. A man should make contributions, and not allow his white hair to turn black. If he waited for his hair to turn white, then even if he had made great contributions, he would already be old and frail. There is one thing that I am very curious about. Since ancient times, the Xian continent could be considered to be tolerant. Xian beasts could also be accepted by humans. So why can't they try to accept those outsiders? Since they can also be called humans, they should also have a form similar to that of a human, right? The outsiders, what is so special about them? Jun Moxie asked curiously. Their strength is so strong. If we can accept them and assimilate them, why can't we? AI, you have not seen those outsiders, so you do not know how scary they are, and even more so, you do not know how dirty and disgusting they are. That is why you have such childish and ignorant thoughts. There was an indescribable expression on Mei Shuiyan's face, as if she was extremely disgusting, and even mentioning it would make her feel dirty. Oh, Jun Moxie asked with great interest. Then what do they look like? The appearance of this tribe. How should I describe it? Their tribe's characteristic is that they are hermaphrodites, a bit like humans deformed conjoined twins. However, no matter which half of them is missing, they will not survive. This is also the biggest weakness of this tribe, which has been concluded by countless predecessors. However, there are also advantages. Because they are composed of two bodies, the meridians inside the body can achieve the effect of complementing each other. Therefore, no matter what martial arts they practice, they will be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. They look ugly, and their behavior is even more ferocious. They have no humanity to speak of. It is not accurate to say that they do not have humanity, because they themselves are not qualified to be called humans. Mei Shuiyan frowned and said, These conjoined humans seem to have a very strange and even strange martial art in their tribe. They can hide their traces in the shortest time or directly turn into a tree or melt into the water. In short, they are ever-changing, and it is very troublesome. Mei Shuiyan paused for a while. Conjoined humans? All of them are conjoined humans? Jun Moxie's eyes widened. He had often heard that conjoined humans were a kind of disease, but he did not expect that there was a tribe here. But why did their martial arts sound so familiar to him when he heard Mei Shuiyan's description? Their martial arts are even a bit similar to the marvelous martial arts you used before. Mei Shuiyan pondered for a long time and finally said, What? Similar to the martial arts I used? What do you mean? You see clearly, I am a 7-foot-tall man, a handsome young man. How can I be related to those *T conjoined humans? The young Master Jun was listening with keen interest, but he got angry when he heard Mei Shuiyan's words. I've heard Mei Shuiyan's explanation. Those conjoined bodies are using the so-called 5 evasive arts at most. Moreover, it's the most vulgar kind. Can it be compared with this young master's unparalleled art of unlocking the heaven's fortune and the yin-yang escape? You're looking down on me too much. Young master, please don't be angry. I certainly understand what young master is saying. Although your martial arts have some slight similarities, the difference between the two of you is too great. It's like the difference between heaven and earth, and can't be mentioned in the same breath. Take my heaven and earth cage as an example. It can be said to be the greatest nemesis of their martial arts, and can kill them with a wave of my hand. Although my martial arts can restrain young Master Jun, but it can only imprison you for a short period of time. If it can kill young Master, it's still beyond my ability. I can even judge that the reason why I can restrain young Master is because young Master's cultivation is shallow. If this kind of divine ability is used by your Master, then my heaven and earth cage will be able to restrain young Master June, and that would be a great fortune. Mei Shuiyin said. Seeing that Jun Moxie was somewhat displeased, Mei Shuiyin had no choice but to flatter Jun Daxiao. Listening to Mei Shuiyin's flattery, even with Jun Daxiao's calm demeanor, he felt as if he was walking on air. However, this wasn't the time to be complacent. Jun Moxie continued to ask, what kind of weapons do these people specialize in, and how cultured are they? Their race seems to only use a type of long and slender saber as their weapon. This saber has undergone thousands of years of evolution and is quite extraordinary. When it slashes and thrusts, it's swift and fierce. Moreover, they have a habit of shouting out their catchphrase every time they strike. Because there's a huge difference in the language and culture between the two continents, it's impossible to understand what they're shouting. It's really annoying. Even if they're conjoined humans, they're still humans, right? It's just that their appearance is a little strange. Could it be? Jun Moxie blinked his eyes, looking like a curious baby. He couldn't wait to grab a conjoined human and study them. Chapter 479. So, it turns out that brother and sister live together. Jun Moxie suddenly thought of something. If their tribe is like this, then it's possible that their genes are like this. That's right. If they live together like this, how do they reproduce and live together? It can't be that when the male of the conjoined body finds a wife, then his conjoined sister and his wife's conjoined brother are staring at them from the side, right? That's so embarrassing. It's also against the norm. Jun Moxie took it for granted that the conjoined bodies of the same mother were naturally brother and sister. Mei Shuiyin's face turned red. She was angry, anxious, and embarrassed. She didn't know how to answer. She fiercely glared at Jun Moxie a few times. Then she closed her eyes and said with a resolute tone, "If they knew about the norm, perhaps our ancestors would have tried to accept them long ago. The most outrageous thing about them is that these filthy fellows don't even look for a spouse. Every conjoined body is a couple. Later on, someone from the three holy and one fierce gave them a unified name, so that it wouldn't be awkward to call them mutated people. Because of their wolf-like nature, they were finally named wolf people." Mei Shuiyin finally finished her introduction. Wolf people. Ronin. Huh. So, there are such shameless existences in this world. This is simply F***king. Ah. Jun Moxie was dumbstruck. He was flabbergasted as he blurted out. Even in his dreams, he didn't expect that such a big news would break out. What? You're also a young master of an aristocratic family. Why can't you be more refined in front of a girl? Can't you stop using those dirty words? Mei Shuiyin's pretty face was deathly pale. Her beautiful eyes were wide open. She pointed at Jun Moxie with her finger and stood up. She almost ran away. Although the great beauty Mei had a lot of experience, she didn't expect that someone would use such a vivid and disgusting metaphor to speak. She thought of the meaning behind it, and she almost fainted from embarrassment. I have to say that the name that Jun Moxie had casually come up with was too appropriate. It was too vivid. It was so vivid that when anyone thought of these words, their mind would be filled with many unbearable images. Mother asterisk cur. The anger in Jun Moxie's bones was aroused. His face was full of anger and disdain. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, spittle flying everywhere. I'm the ancestor of elegance. What this young master hates the most are those despicable and shameless devils. Just a bunch of F***curs. How could they cause such a huge commotion on the Xian continent? To actually come up with some war for seizing the heavens, seizing his mother's bird. This young master is filled with righteous indignation. This young master now announces that I'll be fighting with these fellows for the rest of my life. If I can't get rid of these F***curs once and for all, this young master will walk with a D***ck. Mei Shuiyin and Qian Sun's Serpent Queen, the two Qian beast beauties, instantly blushed. They looked at this brat jumping up and down while spitting out vulgar words from his mouth. The two of them felt embarrassed, but at the same time, they were also a little puzzled. Isn't this a little too much? I've only mentioned a person from a different race. Why is this young master in front of me so angry? It's as if someone had dug up his ancestral grave. Look at this anger. It's not fake. It's completely coming from the bottom of his heart. How could the two of them know where the anger in June Moxie's heart came from? With their cultural heritage, they would never understand the great anger in June Moxie's heart. Although this werewolf was not the Ronin, but it had successfully aroused the hatred that had been buried deep in June Moxie's heart. Let's use this bunch of shameless fellows as an example. What's more, this bunch of fellows' Xian skills are actually similar. It's similar to the art of enduring something. This could be considered as not being able to catch the rabbit and eat the dog. In short, Jun Daxiao was very angry from the bottom of his heart. Young Master Jun, are you all right? After a long while, Mei Shuyan asked with a red face and a somewhat reproachful tone. After all, Jun Daxiao's venting just now was not in line with his original noble temperament. I'm fine. What could happen to me? Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and roared. Don't worry. I'll definitely help you fulfill your request. I'll support this matter greatly. I'll definitely do my best to support you. Towards this kind of strange race devil, we must resolutely strike, cut the weeds, and eliminate the roots, resolutely carry out the policy of exterminating the clan, never leaving behind any future troubles. At that time, this young master will personally go on stage and kill them all. Such filthy and shameless things are not fit to exist in this peaceful world. Jun Daxiao clenched his fist and placed it in front of his chest, his eyes looking straight ahead, assuming a posture of swearing an oath, and said in a righteous manner, as a member of the Xian continent, I, Jun Moxie, will of course protect my home and my country. I will not shirk my duty. Even if my bones are crushed, I will do my utmost. Kill him until the sky is filled with blood, and the ground is filled with pools of blood. Directly exterminate the entire clan and feed them to the dogs. Go to hell. Mei Shuyan laughed and said, Young Master Jun, although I also acknowledge that your martial arts are indeed marvelous, your personal strength is still a little too shallow, and the war for seizing the heavens is just around the corner. Even if your progress is twice as fast, you are still destined to be of no use in the war for seizing the heavens. Your heart is praiseworthy, and your sentiments are worthy of pity. Ha! Jun Moxie snorted and said, That's not necessarily true. What not necessarily true? Do you think that you are very amazing just because you can split a mountain and split a rock? Moreover, you have a divine sword in your hand that can cut through gold and jade, and your lightness, Kung Fu, is even more marvelous. You're like a tiger that has grown wings. Don't you see the heroes of the world in your eyes? We are already friends. So, I can tell you in a very responsible manner. I'm not afraid of hurting your self-confidence. But your skills are nothing in front of a real expert. Not even the slightest threat. Jun Daxiao looked at Mei Shuyan, a real expert. For example, any great master-level expert is enough to take you down. It doesn't matter if it's one of the 8 great masters or the beast kings of Tian Fa. Any one of them can do it. Mei Shuyan replied in a dull manner. So you're saying that this naturally includes you and your sister? Of course, this naturally includes me and Qian's son. I only need to use 50% of my Xian Qi, and I can kill you with a wave of my hand. It doesn't matter how marvelous your agility skills are. This is the truth. Don't ever doubt it. Mei Shuyan chuckled as she looked at Jun Moxie. So, young man, you'd better practice hard. There are some things that you'll understand when you grow up. Jun Moxie almost fainted. Don't I know that I can't really contend against you guys with abnormal strength? But this tone is like an old man who has experienced the vicissitudes of life, speaking to a young man who has just come out of this world. It also sounds like a mother comforting her young son. This young master is an 8-foot-tall man. How can I be looked down upon like this? The Qian Sun Serpent Queen also opened her beautiful eyes wide in astonishment. How can elder sister speak like this? This tone isn't like her usual self. It's a little fierce in appearance, but weak in heart. Even Mei Shuyan's expression didn't change. But she was shocked in her heart. She was shocked by her own words and actions. That was because she had been guarding against him. However, it wasn't the kind of guarding against an enemy. It was the kind of guarding against a man. A woman guarding against a man. For so many years, there hadn't been a man who could make her guard up like this, because they didn't even put her in her eyes. But this young man in front of her had made her raise such a thought. What am I afraid of? I'll surprise you. June Moxie said this sentence with unusual confidence. Oh, young Master June has indeed surprised this seat many times. But to say that you're able to rise from the middle level of the Tianxian realm to at least the supreme realm in less than 3 years' time is still an unprecedented miracle. That's just the ravings of a lunatic. I'm only speaking the truth. I don't think young master will mind, right? Mei Shuiyan said lightly. It was just like what Mei Shuiyan had said. The Xian continent's Xian cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds ever since the war for seizing the heavens. And it had given birth to too many extraordinary and talented people. They were brimming with innate talents and miracles. But even the most marvelous existences who advanced the fastest would only reach the supreme realm after the age of 40 with the help of some fortuitous encounter. There had never been an exception. Bailey Luo Yun was already a rare genius in 100 years. He was only 25 years old, but he had already reached the Earth Xian realm. But this genius was nothing compared to the geniuses of the past. If Bailey Luo Yun didn't have any more fortuitous encounters, reaching the supreme realm before the age of 60 would already be a rare achievement. Jun Daxiao was only 16 or 17 years old, but he had already reached the Tianxian realm. He could be said to be a rare genius in 1,000 years. However, there were still 8 or 10 people who had reached this level in the past. But a young genius didn't equal to a genius of a lifetime. In fact, there were very few people who had reached the Tianxian realm before the age of 20, who had reached the supreme realm before the age of 100. Therefore, Mei Shuiyan had said that Jun Moxie was a lunatic talking in his dreams. And this wasn't entirely sarcastic. Miss May's words are priceless. How could this June mind? But there are many things in this world that can't be imagined. And there are very few things that can't be done. Miss May can't do it. But that doesn't mean that other people can't do it. And it doesn't mean that this June can't do it. The so-called frogs in the well can't see the sky. They don't know the vastness of the Milky Way. Qian Sun's serpent queen couldn't help but reprimand him. June family's boy, you dare to say that we're frogs in the well? You've got a lot of guts. Did I say that? Could it be that you too are those so-called people? Then, I ask for Miss May's forgiveness if that's the case. Jun Moxie didn't bat an eyelid. Instead, he fiercely retorted, Qian Sun's serpent queen, be quiet. The young Master Jun must have something to rely on since he has dared to speak such wild words. Perhaps we're just frogs in the well. Mei Shuiyan's words seemed to be reprimanding Qian Sun's serpent queen. But a sensible person could tell that she was implying that Jun Moxie was overestimating his capabilities. Chapter 480. The corners of the young Master Jun's mouth curled up in an arrogant manner as he slowly continued. Junimo Xie was only a third-grade debauchee half a year ago, and he was only a Jade Xian expert before he left for the Southern Heaven City. Jun Mo Xie may not be able to enter the eyes of the Xian Beast Kings of Tian Fa, but he's already at the middle level of the Sky Xian level. Young Mei may have lived for many years, but she's extremely wise and far-sighted. So, how can you judge that Jun Moxie won't be able to climb to the great master level in less than 3 years? Or perhaps even higher. So, let's see who's talking nonsense in the future. Mei Shuiyan was left speechless as she listened to Jun Daxiao's arrogant words. That's right. He's transformed from a good-for-nothing trash into a Tianxian expert in only half a year. He's completed a process that an ordinary person may not be able to experience in their lifetime. So, why can't he make another breakthrough in 2 years? Jun Daxiao's voice resounded in the ears of the stunned Mei Shuiyan. There's nothing in this world that can stop me if I, Jun Moxie, want to do something. Even the heavens can't stop me. Jun Moxie's tone of voice was very dull, but It contained a heroic spirit that moved Mei Shuiyin and Mei Shuiyin. Mei Shuiyin was still in a trance, but she slowly narrowed her eyes. That was because she had strangely believed in June Moxie's arrogant words. In fact, it was a heartfelt belief, and the fact that such a thing could happen was undoubtedly very frightening, considering her firm and resolute state of mind. I've heard that you're going to auction an elixir called the bone-tempering pill in your aristocratic hall. Mei Shuiyin smiled faintly, but she had already secretly circulated her yuan qi, intending to quickly calm the throbbing in her heart and maintain her icy heart. Haha, what kind of elixir is this? It's just a little plaything. Is Miss May interested in it? June Moxie smiled. Little toy. Young Master June, you really dare to say such things. This kind of little thing may not have much use for us profound beasts, but for you human profound practitioners, it is a good thing to recreate the universe. Don't tell me that your master has not taught you this, but you actually took it out to auction. I can't help but admire your courage. Mei Shuiyin smiled faintly, but her eyes were solemn. I think that once the authenticity of the items in this auction is confirmed, even the 3 holy lands will send people here. A pill that can refine the bones of a Xiantian-born human is definitely a divine item that has never appeared in this world before. The 3 holy lands will also send people here. That's not possible, right? This pill is only an ordinary item that can slightly compact the bones of the human body. That's all. The 3 holy lands have stood strong for thousands of years. How could they take a fancy to this kind of thing? June Moxie was stunned. Why is it not possible? Only an ordinary item? You really dare to say that. You're also a profound practitioner. Don't you know that the human body, whether it's a heaven-sent genius or a diligent practitioner, will always have some inconsistencies? If you can perform one move at the same time, you won't be able to perform another. Therefore, a profound practitioner's martial skill has a relative flaw, and we usually call this flaw. Moreover, the speed of one's attack is closely related to one's bones and meridians. There are many experts who spend their entire lives in pursuit of increasing their speed, even if it's just a snap of their fingers. But they can't break through in the end. Mei Shuiyin was somewhat helpless, and you have this thing in your hand. It's extremely possible for an expert who has been stuck in a certain realm to make a breakthrough. But you've taken out to auction. You should know that even an expert who is above the great master level can only use his innate physique and bones to cultivate. There's no way for him to change it. But even the slightest effect of this bone-tempering pill would be enough to make a powerhouse's strength advance a step further with the help of a slight change in their bones. You should know how difficult it is to advance a step further on the basis of such a powerhouse. So that's how it is. I've overlooked this. June Moxie nodded while pondering. It seems that I've thought of this matter in a somewhat simple manner. He raised his head and said, Miss May, thank you for your pointers. It's true that the 2 of you possess extraordinary strength, but it may not be very convenient for you to stay here. How about you 2 stay in my house? You can keep Sister Qing Han company. You 2 know each other anyway. We can take care of each other in this way. So, it'll be more convenient for us to discuss anything. June Moxie was thinking about wishful thinking in his heart. If he could invite these 2 fairy-like beauties back home, then it would be tantamount to inviting 2 protective talismans for the June family. Moreover, they would be extremely powerful. After all, these 2 women were as beautiful as fairies. Moreover, their strength was even stronger than that of the gods. They were truly capable of repelling all evils. One of them was Mei Shuiyin, who was far above the great master level. The other one was the Snake King, whose strength was comparable to the 8 great masters. Moreover, there was also the solitary eagle, the god of the grasslands, who was at home, let alone the Tianxiang imperial family. Even if all the other great masters gathered together, or if the 3 holy lands came to invade, they would still be able to ensure their safety. At the very least, the people whom they cared about wouldn't be harmed. Then, they would be able to put down their worries completely. Then, they could make a special trip to the Dongfang family. Then, they could take a detour to the Silver Blizzard City. The sword peak collapses the snowy mountains. The third uncle and the third aunt are finally together. This is what June Moxie has been working hard for all this time. However, whether they live in or not, I must practice hard like crazy with my own strength. I must improve my strength and break through the art of unlocking heaven's fortune and the exquisite Hongjun pagoda. Only by breaking through will I be able to exert even greater strength. All right, then, we'll shamelessly disturb you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to see if I can have a deep talk with your master. I want to deepen the scope of our cooperation. Mei Shuiyan hesitated for a moment. Then, she finally agreed. June Moxie was overjoyed. The three of them walked together towards Tianxiang City. On the way, June Moxie asked curiously, "Miss Mei, you once said that those wolf-like people would roar before they attacked. What did they roar about?" Mei Shuiyan frowned deeply. She thought for a long time before replying, "I think it's tyrannical crusher. It's been too long since the last battle, so I don't remember it clearly." June Moxie's anger soared to the heavens when he heard these words. He fiercely gritted his teeth and cursed. "Tyrannical gash. Yes, that's what they were talking about. How did you know?" Mei Shuiyan nodded repeatedly. She had finally recalled her distant memories. However, she was still very surprised. She looked at June Moxie and said, "How did you know? Could it be that your master also participated in the war for seizing the heavens?" June Moxie was speechless. He walked even faster. After bringing Mei Shuiyan and Mei Shuiyan back to the June family, June Moxie arranged for them to stay with Guanqing Han. After all, they were old acquaintances. Then, he started to practice without stopping. He had received a thick stack of invitations in the past few days. There were invitations from the three princes, invitations from the big families, and even invitations from the Xianqi families outside of Tianxiang City. June Moxie ignored all of them. He didn't have the spare time to pay attention to these small fries. Tang Yuan had been extremely busy during this time. He had to prepare for the auction of the bone-tempering pills. On the other hand, he had to deal with the Huang family. Everything had to be done in a swift and decisive manner. Fatty had finally realized that the auction he was going to host wouldn't be easy. At least, it wouldn't be as easy as it had been in the past. However, he still couldn't change the outcome of the auction even though he had realized this. The most unlucky family was the Golden East City's Huang family. The Huang family had been dreaming ever since their son had entered the Tianxiang City. They had been dreaming that their son would return with a beautiful woman. Perhaps they had been hoping for a marriage with the Duga family. Then, their family's strength would rise once again. They had been waiting for such a wonderful news. Their son had suddenly been killed. Moreover, Duga Zongheng had flown into a rage. In fact, he had demanded an explanation from the Huang family. This had thrown the Huang family into a complete panic. Old man Duga hadn't even managed to deal with this matter. But the Huang family's businesses had suffered an unprecedented crisis. Almost all of their business partners had left overnight. In fact, they had unilaterally severed all of their business relationships. Moreover, their businesses had been suppressed. In fact, they hadn't been able to raise their heads. In fact, they had been forced to sell their businesses at a loss. And this wasn't the end of it. Their businesses had been smashed every 3 to 5 days. Moreover, they had been extorted by local ruffians several times a day. And the members of their families had come back with bruises all over their bodies. Even the local officials, the lord of the city, who used to sit with the Huang family and touch the bottom of a bottle of wine and talk about everything, had become like the king of hell. For example, a normal procedure would take 3 days. In the past, the Huang family would be able to complete it in half a day. But now, it had been half a month, and they had not even completed 1/3 of the procedure. And they could not complain. If they did, they would immediately stop working. Then, it was not that they could not do it anymore, but they would have to go through the whole process again. The Huang family would have been extremely stupid if they hadn't realized that they had offended such a powerful person at this point. Old man Huang had personally visited the Duga family, but he had been refused at the door. After a few twists and turns, he had finally seen his daughter. But he had realized that his son hadn't died in vain. He had offended a powerful person that the Huang family couldn't afford to offend. In fact, they couldn't afford to offend such a powerful person. Moreover, they had offended him to death. Old man Huang's legs had gone weak after he had heard the true reason behind this matter. In fact, he had almost fainted. He couldn't help but shed tears. "My son, your father doesn't object to your jealousy. But you should also weigh your own weight, right? You're jealous of the Tang family and the Jun family. You even want to kill them. Where did you get the courage to do that? My son is dead, so it's natural for me to hate him. But this hatred seems insignificant when compared to the survival of the entire family. After all, there are hundreds of people in the family who need to survive. They need to eat, and this is much more important than a son." Old man Huang had become anxious when he had seen the family's foundation decline little by little, and the family's wealth had shrunk at a rapid pace. He was about to throw away his face and beg for mercy from Tang Yuan Dashao. But the Huang family situation had unexpectedly taken a turn for the better. This unexpected turn of events had boosted old man Huang's confidence. So, he didn't intend to apologize and beg for mercy anymore. Instead, he intended to take back everything. And he wanted to make that damned big fatty and that Jun family debauchee kneel down and beg for mercy. Otherwise, he wouldn't let them off so easily. In fact, old man Huang had even openly declared, "My Huang family doesn't fear power. Whoever offends us will pay the price. Whoever hounded my son to death will pay with his life. It doesn't matter who you are. A life for a life. A debt must be repaid. This is a matter of principle." Then, old man Huang had spat out the whole story. "The Duga family had an engagement with us, but they broke the engagement to marry someone else in order to curry favor with the Jun family. And they sold their daughter for glory. My Huang family despises this, but the engagement cannot be changed. My son is dead, but the Dugu family's daughter must still marry into the Huang family according to the engagement. Otherwise, the heavens are watching. The sun is bright. Good and evil will be repaid." Moreover, old man Huang had become even more unyielding towards Tang Yuan. "Didn't my son carelessly push you into the latrine to take a bath? Do you need to be so unforgiving? Not only did you kill someone, but you also use such a vicious method to deal with us. Where is justice? Where is justice?" This matter had set off a huge uproar, and the fact that Fatty Tang had fallen into the latrine became known to everyone. This had made the Tang family's old man furious, and Fatty Tang had suffered a few times because of this. However, it could be said that Fatty had picked up a rock and smashed it on his own feet. After all, the Huang family's backer would have died out if the bone-tempering pills hadn't been auctioned, and you wouldn't have known about it either. The Huang family had deliberately targeted the Jun family's third young master, Jun Moxie. "You're Tianxiang's #1 debauchee. Didn't you have a good life because you had a capable master? Do you really think that you're from a super family? You've brought chaos to the imperial court and bullied men and women. You've forcefully taken someone else's fiancé, and you've even hounded him to death. How can such behavior be tolerated? Moreover, you've snatched my Huang family's daughter-in-law. You're courting death." On the other hand, the Huang family had dispatched several experts to beat up the thugs who had gone to cause trouble, and the merchants who hadn't cooperated with them. They had beaten them until they were wailing in misery. The Huang family had made their stand clear. They had vowed to fight these shameless families to the bitter end. They would never yield. The Huang family was full of confidence. This news had shaken the entire court as soon as it had spread out. In fact, the entire world was in an uproar. Who would have thought that the insignificant Huang family would be so crazy? They have the guts to confront the Dugu, Jun, and Tang families at the same time. Could it be that they've eaten too much? Could it be that the Huang family's old man's head has been kicked by a donkey? Has his brain gone haywire because his son was killed? They've provoked the Jun family, the Tang family, and the Dugu family at the same time. This is the behavior of a lunatic. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they've lost their minds. Instantly, Countless people watched coldly from the sidelines to see how this matter would end. Most of the people believed that the Huang family was finished this time. Chapter 481. However, all the aristocratic families seemed to have sensed something different, so they all looked on with the cold eyes of a bystander. What was even more outrageous was that the Emperor of Tianxiang had been living in seclusion ever since the Southern Heaven City's army had returned to the capital. He had completely ignored the big and small matters, and had calmly sat on the fishing platform. He had allowed the wind to blow and the waves to batter him. In any case, I'm pretending to be deaf and dumb. I don't care about anything. So, I'm just pretending to be deaf and dumb. I don't care about anything. The Tianxiang city had become a hot commodity ever since the bone-tempering pill's astonishing efficacy had been spread. Almost every day, people from the aristocratic families would arrive in carriages. The carriages had left deep ruts on the road, so it could be seen that there was a lot of gold and silver inside. There were also many people who had come without any burden. However, they were holding large amounts of silver notes and had been exchanging them for gold and silver in the Tianxiang city. In fact, the majority of the money in the Tianxiang city had been transferred to the inns in the past few days. Moreover, there was still an endless stream of people coming from afar. Jun Moxie had entered the Hongjun Pagoda as soon as he had the time after he had returned home. He had been absorbing the heaven and earth's spirit qi, transforming it into Zhen Yuan, and then exhaling it out. Everyone knew that Jun Moxie was at home. However, no one had seen him. No one was an exception. During this period of time, Jun Moxie had been frantically practicing his martial arts. On the other hand, he had been frantically searching for pill recipes. The art of unlocking the heaven's fortune contained tens of millions of pill recipes. How could it be possible that there weren't any pills suitable for him to refine within these millions of pill recipes? Jun Moxie didn't believe it. However, there were some things that he had to believe. They were very difficult to find. He had searched the entire place, but still hadn't found anything. In fact, this was not surprising. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune was known as the #1 mystical cultivation technique since the beginning of the world. It was not a mystical cultivation technique that mortals could dip their fingers into. In fact, it could even be said to be the ultimate cultivation technique of cultivation. For example, if you were to search for elementary school knowledge in a top-grade encyclopedia, the contents of the book would certainly be extremely shallow. It was not that the quality of the book was not high enough, but rather that the level of the information the scholar was searching for was too low. The young Master Jun was very unlucky to be in this awkward situation. The pill recipes recorded in the Book of Unlocking Heaven's Fortune were all good things. Unfortunately, he was either unable to refine them, or they were useless to him. Some good pills could be refined and could be refined. However, there was only one result after consuming them, and that was death. Of course, since it was a super encyclopedia, it would definitely not disappoint or give up hope. For example, the 10 years pill was an exception. He believed that there would definitely be other exceptions in this encyclopedia. However, it would definitely take some time to find them. Jun Dashao had over 100 bottles of the 10 years Dan. He had also prepared dozens of bone-tempering pills. So, he believed that it would be enough for him to use. The other nourishing pills would be useless if he were to refine pills for the Xian beasts of Tian Fa. In fact, they would be completely meaningless. That was because in the eyes of the Xian beasts, the most important thing was strength. The second was strength. The third was strength. That was what they wanted. That was their only goal. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao had plundered hundreds of elixirs from the Tian Fa forest. It couldn't be said to be a small number. And Jun Dashao's original intention was to use these elixirs to increase his cultivation. He had a large number of valuable elixirs now. However, he didn't have a suitable pill recipe to refine, so it was a waste. In fact, as long as the elixirs were old, they could be directly consumed by those who had cultivated Xian Qi. Then, they could circulate their Xian Qi to refine them. It could also increase one's cultivation. Take ginseng, for example. As long as it was more than 100 years old, it could increase one's cultivation. However, the effects wouldn't be significant. After all, the medicinal power of the ginseng had accumulated over the years, and it hadn't been refined into a pill that could be absorbed by the human body. On the other hand, there was a saying that every medicine has 3 parts poison. So, the effects wouldn't be good if one were to take only one type of medicine. In fact, it could easily lead to the imbalance of yin and yang. Take ginseng as an example. The attribute of ginseng was masculine. It was true that it could greatly replenish one's vitality, and it had always been the medicine of choice for doctors. But its medicinal nature was too strong, so it could easily lead to negative side effects. Another example was the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit that he had obtained from the Tian Fa forest. This thing was extremely precious from the human world's point of view, but it was only slightly inferior when compared to the top-notch pills recorded in the art of unlocking the heaven's fortune. And the reason why Jun Moxie had attached so much importance to it was because it wasn't particularly high grade. But it could be included in the 6th layer of the art of unlocking the heaven's fortune. Moreover, it could be used by ordinary people. So, it was exceedingly precious. The attribute of the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit could be said to be extreme from the human world's point of view. It was extremely yin and evil, so it could be obtained within the right time limit. But its enormous medicinal properties weren't something that an ordinary person could withstand. Even the beast kings of Tian Fa might not be able to withstand it. They would obviously break through the bottleneck if they succeeded, and their cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds. But their bodies would explode, and they would die if they weren't careful. The beast kings of Tian Fa were well aware of the dangers involved in this, but they were willing to risk their lives in order to pursue a breakthrough in their strength. So, they were willing to risk their lives in order to do so. And this behavior was obviously a waste of resources in the eyes of Jun Dashao. Of course, it wasn't that there weren't some natural elixirs that could directly enhance one's strength after taking them. But these spiritual herbs were the main ingredients needed in some high-grade pills. So, their efficacy would increase if they could be refined into pills. Moreover, they could benefit many people. So, it would be a waste if they were taken rashly. For example, 1,000-year snow spirit mushroom could increase one's strength by 100 years after taking it. But it could increase the strength of dozens of people by 100 years if it was refined into pills. One didn't need to ask to know which was more important. In fact, the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit could also be considered as one of these pills. And the beast kings of Tian Fa wouldn't be the only ones who would benefit if Jun Moxie could successfully refine it into pills. So, I won't say any more unnecessary words. The days passed like this, and Jun Moxie's Xian Qi cultivation continued to grow. In fact, he had already gradually broken through the Tian Xian middle level if he were to use Xian Qi as a standard. In fact, he was progressing step by step towards the Tian Xian pinnacle level. And Jun Moxie would hold a large pile of pill recipes and ponder them carefully during this period of time. So, he wouldn't practice his martial arts. As the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. Over time, Jun Mo Xie finally had some gains. He had picked out a few pills from the vast array of pill recipes. Although the encyclopedia's primary and secondary knowledge was scarce, it wasn't completely non-existent. Moreover, it was precisely because it was scarce that the contents were extraordinary. Just like the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit, it was originally a worldly elixir, but it was included in the 6th level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. In the past, when Jun Dashao refined pills, he would only look at the name of the pill recipe and refine the pills according to the book. But this time, he looked at all the components of the pill recipe and the densely packed instructions at the back. Apart from the 10 years pill that he had already refined, there were still 7 or 8 other types of pills that could increase one's cultivation. Moreover, all of them had extraordinary effects. This discovery made Jun Moxie extremely happy. However, he naturally ignored the pills that belonged to the first or second level. Now that the system was at the third level, he naturally had to refine the higher level pills. These 3 pill recipes were the Vitality Linkage Pill, the Vitality Gathering Pill, and the Heaven Vitality Pill. These are the 3 types of pills that Jun Moxie had used a tremendous amount of effort to filter out. From the densely packed pill recipes, he had explored them bit by bit, analyzed them one by one, and inquired about them one by one. This amount of work took a lot out of Jun Moxie. In fact, young Master Jun was very confident that if he had been this diligent in his previous life, Tsinghua University and Peking University would have been as easy as taking something out of his pocket. He would have been able to obtain all the doctorates and master's degrees in the entire world with ease. He would have been able to obtain them with lightning speed and ease. The Vitality Linkage Pill was a type of pill that increased the speed of vital energy flow in the meridians of the human body. Naturally, it also included the mystical energy of the mainland and the heavenly punishment force. Although this pill could not directly increase one's strength, it could greatly increase the speed of vital energy flow. Think about it, the same river that was 10 feet wide with the same amount of water. One river was calm and unhurried, while the other river was turbulent and surging. Then, which river was more powerful? The effects of the Vitality Linkage Pill did not stop there. If one were to judge based on the comparison just now, if the meridians of a normal cultivator were a plain river, then the meridians of a person who had consumed the Vitality Linkage Pill were equivalent to a tall mountain waterfall. Although the water flow was still the same, there was already a fundamental difference. The effect of the Vitality Linkage Pill was to transform the plain river into a tall mountain waterfall. Think about it. An expert who could originally launch 3 attacks in a breath's time, after this transformation, could launch 9 attacks. Moreover, it was more than enough. When experts exchanged blows, life and death were separated by a hair's breadth. It seemed like a difference of 3 times, but the lethality of the attack was increased by at least 10 times. This was the principle of the difference of a millimeter, but the difference of 1,000 miles. This was especially true for the Beast Kings of the Tian Fa forest who were renowned for their speed. This pill was almost tailor-made for them, and could be said to be an immortal pill that could seize the fortune of the heavens. This kind of astonishing transformation, even Jun Moxie himself could feel the terror. However, high rewards were often accompanied by high risks. This pill contained an extremely great danger. For cultivators whose meridians were not flexible or whose mystical cultivation was above Shun Xian's level, after consuming this pill, all the meridians in their body would immediately rupture, and there would be absolutely no hope of recovery. The Vitality Linkage Pill was worthy of the word linkage. Vitality Congregation Pill. Chapter 482. As for the restrictions, it's the same as the Vitality Linkage Pill. High returns are always accompanied by high risks. At this point, I believe that everyone should have realized that only a cultivation idiot like Junimo Xie hadn't realized that this spirit-gathering pill was basically the same as the spirit-gathering pill mentioned in the cultivation novels of his previous life. However, in terms of effectiveness, it was far more effective than the spirit-gathering pill. Heavenly Vitality Pill. This pill had no other benefits apart from increasing one's cultivation. It could be said that it was an upgraded version of the 10 years pill. Taking one pill could increase one's cultivation by 50 years. However, the restrictions were slightly higher than the 10 years pill. Not everyone could take it. Only those at the level of Tian Xian and above could take it. Jun Moxie bared his fangs and brandished his claws in the Hong Jun Pagoda. He was laughing maniacally. Damn it! What does it mean to say that hard work pays off? Isn't this the case? Sure enough, there's a harvest for every bit of work. I've finally found these 3 pills under this young master's painstaking efforts. This is simply like a village that has a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. However, Jun Daxiao still had some doubts. In his mind, strength was everything. The Heavenly Vitality Pill was much more effective than the Vitality Linkage Pill and the Vitality Congregation Pill. It could increase one's cultivation by 50 years in one go. How respectable and terrifying was this? Why was the Heavenly Vitality Pill's restriction so low? Moreover, the other two pills could only be taken by those at the level of Shun Xian and above. However, the Heavenly Vitality Pill could only be taken by those at the level of Tian Xian and above. Wasn't the disparity between the two too big? This didn't make sense. If his doubts were known by any other cultivator, they would probably beat him until his face was blooming like a peach blossom, his eyes were dazzling like stars, his head was like a pig's head, and his butt was like an elephant's, but at the very least, they would let him know why flowers were so red. Just like that, he might even be so angry that he would roar and spit out dozens of tails of blood. One idiot, a cultivation idiot. This kind of heaven-defying idiocy had obviously reached the point where even the Jade Emperor was speechless. How could he have such good luck? How could such a good thing fall into the hands of this idiot? A good cabbage was taken by a pig. In for a penny, in for a pound. Jun Moxie decided to stay in the Hongjun Pagoda to cultivate and refine pills. When he was thirsty or hungry, he would directly swallow the ordinary medicinal herbs he had on hand. Although it was a little wasteful, this kind of 1,000-year sealwort could not only satisfy his hunger, but also quench his thirst. Most importantly, he still had a lot of them in stock. Now, that time was rather tight. He didn't care too much about it. Compared to some of the heavenly elixirs, it was obvious that this thing was no longer worthy of Jun Dashao's eyes. Jun Dashao's extravagance was a reckless waste of heavenly treasures. If this were to fall into the eyes of any medicinal family in the Xian continent, they would be so distressed that they would hover between life and death, and then die and come back to life again. Torture. These were all top-notch elixirs that could only be harvested in the depths of the Tian Fa forest. This was also the terrifying accumulation of the Tian Fa forest for thousands of years. And how many people in this world could safely reach the core of the Tian Fa forest? Even experts at the level of the 8 great masters would have to worry about not being able to come out alive if they went in. It would already be an amazing feat to find a 100-year sealwort in the market. But this Jun Dashao was actually munching on a 1,000-year sealwort like it was a carrot. Moreover, he was sighing nonstop. It's tasteless. It tastes like wax. It's not tasty. This young master is being abused. If these words of his were spread out, there would surely be countless white-haired divine doctors and the patriarchs of the medicinal families scrambling over each other. I beg you, please let me be abused once. I beg you. I represent my 8 generations of ancestors and future generations to sincerely beg you, please abuse me once. Or if you were to be seen by a miser like Fatty Tang, who regarded money as his life, Fatty would certainly cry and shout, "Brother, you're my blood brother. Please abuse me once. I'm willing to do it 10 times. I'm even willing to do it 100 times. You're not eating elixirs. You're eating mountains of gold and silver. You're making my heart ache." Jun Imosie's face was flushed as he once again took the 1,000-year Solomon seal to fill his stomach. His body was surging with vigor, and he had nowhere to vent it. So he first calmly circulated his chi, and then played with his fists and legs for a long time. Then he hummed and snorted as he practiced his swords. Finally, he began to refine pills again. Jun Dashao was quite proficient in concocting elixirs by now. After all, he had been crazily refining the bone-tempering pill and the others. So he had accumulated a lot of experience. Faced with these 3 newly researched elixirs, Jun Dashao naturally started with what he thought to be the lowest level elixir. After accumulating experience, he would refine the Heavenly Yuan pill, which was more difficult to refine, but also had the highest value. After all, these were all top-grade medicinal ingredients. It would be a pity to waste them. His first choice was naturally this simple vitality linkage pill. Jun Dashao was in high spirits. He struck an awesome pose and imitated the living Buddha Ji Gong's mantra, "Oh, mommy, mommy, mommy." Mommy, 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 mommy. He pointed his finger like a sword. The furnace of good fortune rose into the air with a wong sound. It stood upright in the void and slowly rotated. Then it radiated thousands of propitious chi and 10,000 rays of light as it rotated. The black primal chaos flame, which had been burning peacefully, silently rose into the sky with a loud rumble. It used the flame to support the body of the furnace of good fortune. The black flame was like 10,000 ghostly tongues of flame. The flame reached the sky and burned faintly. The black flame also soared into the furnace of good fortune. Amidst the multicolored radiance of the furnace of good fortune, the black flame was dazzling. Jun Moxie revealed a proud smile. He was smug and full of confidence. His right hand grasped the void, and the 21 medicinal ingredients that he had prepared earlier floated into the air. Then, like moths flying into a flame, they entered the furnace of good fortune in a single file. Jun Moxie quickly formed countless hand seals, and with a bang sound, the lid of the furnace of good fortune automatically flew up and merged with the body of the furnace of good fortune. At this moment, the primal chaos flame also exploded. The flame rapidly soared, and the entire furnace of good fortune was enveloped by the primal chaos flame. Jun Moxie followed the requirements of the Dan technique. He used the 7-star steps and swiftly moved around the black flame. His hand seals changed in a complicated manner, and the spiritual power in his body surged out to support the primal chaos flame. Time passed by quickly. Jun Dashao suddenly felt that something was wrong. Crap, I've been refining for a long time. At the very least, it should be 10 times longer than before. How come there is still no movement? In the past, 10 furnaces of 10 years pills would have been ready by now. But there is still no movement. What's going on? After a while, Jun Dashao finally felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. He felt dizzy and his steps were weak. His entire body was drenched in sweat. The spiritual power in his body was about to reach the bottom. But the furnace of good fortune that was surrounded by the black flame still didn't show any movement. I must hold on. I must hold on. I can't drop the ball at this critical moment. Jun Moxie clenched his teeth. He took out a 10 years pill and threw it into his mouth. Even if it can't increase my martial power, it can still restore my spiritual power. Finally, Jun Dashao was exhausted and couldn't hold on any longer. But the goddess of luck once again favored Jun Dashao. The furnace of good fortune issued a clanging sound, and its lid flew up. The primal chaos flame quietly shrank into a small pile, and the furnace of good fortune slowly fell down. My God, it's too difficult. How can it be so difficult? Isn't it just a medicine that's similar to the bone-tempering pill? How can it be so difficult to practice? This young master's life was nearly taken away. Jun Moxie gasped for breath. He wiped his sweat, and his legs trembled like noodles. Then, he finally sat down on the ground. It seemed as if he had done it many times in a night. Or, it seemed as if he had run 1,000 miles without stopping. He stuck out his tongue and panted for a long time. Then, he staggered and struggled to stand up. Then, he stuck his head out to look at the furnace of good fortune. How can this be? Jun Moxie cried out in astonishment. He couldn't help but rub his eyes in disbelief. Then, he fixed his eyes to look again. A mass of black ash was calmly lying at the bottom of the furnace of good fortune. Jun Dashao's entire body was paralyzed like a deflated ball. He had fallen to the ground. His body was exhausted. His martial power had been overdrawn. He had been full of confidence and had suffered a cruel blow from failure. He had spent so much effort, but he had dropped the ball in the end. My God, why is my life so bitter? Fu *K. I don't believe this evil. I'm going to fight you. I don't believe that I can't deal with you. Jun Moxie jumped up with a malevolent look on his face. He pointed one hand to the sky and the other to the ground. Then he closed his eyes and started to revolve the art of unlocking heaven's fortune with all his might. His dantian warmed up slightly. Then, A wisp of pure spiritual power soared into his meridians. The Hongjun Pagoda's enormous amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi seemed to have encountered a tornado. Like 100 rivers converging into the sea, it rushed towards Jun Moxie's body. A long, long time passed. No one knew how much time had passed. Then, Jun Moxie's eyes opened, and a bright light burst out. His physical strength and spiritual power had been completely restored. But when he tried to examine his body, Jun Moxie was surprised to find that he had overdrawn his limits. This time, he had overdrawn his strength to the limit. And the result of this overdrawing was that the art of unlocking heaven's fortune had advanced by a large step. Just from the amount of spiritual chi he absorbed, he could clearly feel that it was several times more than what he had absorbed in the past. Strange. Jun Dashao scratched his head. He couldn't understand it no matter how much he thought about it. He hurriedly poked his head out and went to his own courtyard. Only then did he realize that he had spent a full day and a night to concoct the pills. He had already stayed in the Hongjun Pagoda for more than 10 days. His snow-white robe was now completely unrecognizable. It was extremely filthy. His hair was messy like a chicken's nest. His face was covered in black stains. Those were sweat stains. He looked even more like a beggar than a beggar. Jun Mo. Xie hurriedly gave some instructions. Then, he stepped into the bathtub naked. He scrubbed himself while he pondered. What's going on? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.